Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters, and as Brendan is about to tell you, we have a pretty special guest with us tonight.
Yes, and I'm Brendan Kennedy, the co-host of the show, and we also have with us Mr. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
It's a privilege to have you on tonight, Max. I have to tell you right off the bat, I need to be transparent. I have huge respect for you. You're one of the very few politicians I've ever come across, ever, who has been consistent in what you have been saying. You've been true to your word, especially during the pandemic and the lockdowns. And I just have to compliment you on that. It means so much to me as a Canadian to see somebody actually standing up and doing walking the walk and doing what they're saying they're going to do. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Rick. It was, it was so sad the last 2 years with these draconian measures. And I was not alone also, I did a lot of rallies with other politicians at the provincial level. I'm thinking about, what is his name? Ontario MLL. My God, I just forgot his name. Randy Hillier.
Randy
Sorry.
Hillier.
Yeah. I was with Randy also. Randy was one of the first one also to be very vocal against all these mandates. So, but we needed to do that, and we'll see what will happen in the near future. But as you know, we still have a vaccine passport at the federal level. I cannot travel across the country because I decided not to take the 2 shots. There's no science behind that. There's no logic. There's no common sense. All that must stop. And actually, concerning that, I just want to inform you that I'll be in the court in September, the first week of September. I'm challenging these regulations because, it is my constitutional right to be able to travel freely across this country by plane or by train or by boat. So the hearing will be the first week of September.
That's interesting you say that. We were saying just 2 nights ago that these mandates need to be challenged in court. So tell us a little bit more about this court challenge that you're about to mount, and how can people support that?
Yes, I'm not the only one. Actually, we are about, I believe, 6 or 7 persons. And so the judge decided to put all these cases together. And so that's why it will start in September. And I believe that if Trudeau is lifting these restrictions, I believe that the judge will hear our case also, because we told him that that can happen in the near future. We want to have a decision from the court saying that, that was illegal and unconstitutional. I hope that we have a good judge. I hope that the judge will follow the Constitution, but we never know. And if we don't win, I can tell you that we will appeal that. And I'm working with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. And I can tell you that they did a good job during the last 2 years fighting these restrictions and appealing also the decision, because they were not so successful, but they are appealing a lot of decisions. So I believe that it will have to go maybe up to the Supreme Court, but we are doing the fight. So we are doing the fight in the court, and I'm doing the fight as a politician, also trying to change the public opinion and having more people that understand that these measures were not necessary. I'm following, and since the beginning, the Great Boddington Declaration, these experts said, just protect the most vulnerable people, the older people, more than 75 years old, and let's the economy open, no mask, no vaccine passport, no lockdowns, no curfew, no stay-at-home orders. But I can tell you that I was the only national leader against these draconian measures. The Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP, the Green, the Bloc Québécois, they supported Justin Trudeau for the last 2 years. That's a shame. We didn't have any real opposition in Ottawa. We had an official opposition, that is the Conservative Party of Canada, but they were not opposing. They didn't do anything. They were in line with these draconian measures, and they approved it. They voted for it. So I can tell you that the People's Party of Canada was and is still the only real opposition in Ottawa.
And today I received an email from Jean Charest, and he stole Randy Hillier's "No More Lockdowns" slogan. All these conservative hopefuls, leadership hopefuls, seem to be trying to hijack or take over the freedom movement. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and now, it's less dangerous to speak about freedom. When I started that in the beginning of that pandemic, don't forget, I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail for 12 hours because I had a rally, not a rally, it was a meeting in a park with the executive of our riding association. And we were maybe, if I believe, 8 or 10 person. And so I was the only one arrested and cuffed and put in jail. That was political repression. But now speaking about freedom, it's a little bit more popular because of people like Randy Hillier and other also people, and because of the truckers also, so that movement is growing. And now these traditional establishment politicians are jumping and speaking about freedom, but because it's popular. So it's easy to judge a politician, when if he's saying something only when it's popular, that doesn't mean anything. And you need to stick to your conviction. And that's what we want to do at the PPC. We are speaking about our values. And if it's not popular, we think that we have the best ideas and the real bold reforms that we must do to have a smarter government in Ottawa, a freer and a more prosperous country. And our goal is to speak about our platform, our ideas openly with passion and conviction. And the more we speak about it, the more support we will have. And actually, when we started the People's Party in 2018, we had 0%. And the first election in 2019, 1.6%. The second election for us in 2021, last September, 5%. And our party is growing step by step. So that's why I'm saying we are doing politics differently, because it's not based on survey or polling or focus group. But yes, Jean Charest, Pierre Poilievre, and all these establishment politicians are doing a lot of survey and polling, and now it's popular to speak about freedom. So I appreciate that, because it's important that more and more people understand that we are not in a free country anymore in Canada.
Sorry, go ahead, Brandon. Just jump in.
I don't want to touch too deep into this, but Randy Hillier had been in some hot water recently. They had barred him from the Ontario legislature. He was also charged and arrested by the Ottawa police. Is he doing okay? Is Randy okay?
Yeah, I spoke with him, I believe, 2 weeks ago. He didn't do anything wrong. Actually, I was with him in Ottawa the 3 weekends, and so it's only political repression. It's sad that the police is doing that right now against a member of the Legislative Assembly, a politician that did nothing wrong. I can tell you that because I was with him all the time. So if he has some charges, why I don't have anything, because we did the same thing. We deliver speeches. We were speaking over there, speaking with truckers, shaking hands, and having fun with people over there, because it was a protest, but also the feeling over there was very good, because at that time people knew that something is happening, and they know that they had more and more support from the population. And actually that movement, that freedom convoy, was very successful, because after that all the provinces except Quebec right now lift all their draconian measures, except Trudeau also. But we will do that fight, and I'm optimistic that we'll be able to win that, and everybody must be able to travel in Canada by plane or by train without having to show their papers.
It's very clear that these travel mandates are discriminatory, and I would think on that basis alone they're unconstitutional. How can people support what you are doing? Do you need donations? Should people be making donations to the JCCF? What can people do?
Yeah, actually, yes. Because, as you know, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is a nonprofit organization, and they don't receive any money from any government. And so they're very independent, and their goal is always to fight for more freedom and less government. So if people want to donate to them, they can go on their website. And for us, the People's Party, we didn't receive any money from the government during the pandemic. Remember, the Conservatives, the Liberals, they had subsidies from the government during the pandemic. We said no to that. We are raising money with our supporters. And if people want to know more about the People's Party, they can go also on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They can become a member. They can also donate. They can look at our newsletter. So there's different way, and they can participate also, being part of their riding association in their riding. Actually, I'm starting a road trip. I'll be in Atlantic Canada the first 3 weeks of May. I will travel by car, because, as you know, I cannot fly. I will travel by car. And my goal is to meet our people looking for candidates. We want to be ready for the next general election, and we want to have a candidate in every riding. That's important for us. We want to give the opportunity to every single Canadian to be able to vote for their values. So I'm meeting our riding association. I will meet some people. I will do a meet and greet. And if people want to know more about that, they can follow me on Twitter, on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, on Instagram, on Rumble. So every day we'll do something over there. And I'm looking forward for that road trip with our team.
Is this coalition between the NDP and the Liberals that seems to be giving the Liberal government a lease on life, at least until 2025, potentially, is that a good thing for the PPC? Does it give the party more time to get organized before the next election?
Yeah, first, we must say that it's a bad thing for Canadians, because that means more socialism, more big government, more spending with money that we don't have. And so we are paying for that. All these huge deficit. Don't forget, Trudeau, the last 2 years, did a $450 billion deficit. And that was the Bank of Canada that bought the Canadian bonds. And that's why we have inflation. They printed money out of thin air. And now, because of that, you have the inflation tax. It's a real tax. Now it's 6.7%, and that will increase. But people know that the real inflation is more than 6.7%. If you do your grocery, your transportation, gas, food, it is more than that. And so inflation is bad. Everybody is poor. It's a kind of a regressive tax because the middle class and the poor are more affected by that tax. It's an unfair tax. For the rich, it's okay, but for the middle class and the poor, it's very bad. So we need to fight that. But now with Trudeau, what I'm saying, and the NDP, that will be more spending. And also only the interest on our debt for this year, that will be $24 billion that we are paying the interest every year, $24 billion. So imagine what we can do with $24 billion. And these new programs in the last budget, Trudeau spent $50 billion more money, more new programs, because the NDP was asking for that. So more spending, more inflation, and everybody will be poor. So that's very bad for Canadians. And for us as a political party, the only good news is, yes, like you said, we will have more time to build the party, more time to raise money, more time to put aside money in the bank. Actually, we are fiscally responsible. We spent about $1.3 million at the last general election. We don't have any debts. We don't have any deficit, and we'll have a surplus this year about $400,000 that we will put aside for the next election. So we are spending the money that we raise, and we are looking for being sure that at the next election, our goal is to have maybe 2 million in banks that will be able to promote the party, because we cannot count on the mainstream media to promote our ideas or to speak about us. But the good news for the next general election, I will be part of the national debates. I will be debating against these establishment leaders, and that will be a real debate, because you're going to see all these establishment political leaders saying almost the same thing, and us speaking the truth based on facts and on values and principles. So that will be interesting, and I'm looking forward for that. Answering your question, yeah, because we'll have more time, we'll be able to be ready for the next election.
I'm very concerned about the way they're using lawfare to shut down and shut up political opponents. And now we're seeing legislation pending that will bring more censorship to Canada through the internet. We're seeing that Justin Trudeau wants to license journalists and give favorable treatment to the mainstream media. Can I get your thoughts on those things?
Oh, yeah, that's, that's not the Canadian way. And I'm not surprised. Actually, Justin Trudeau, is giving $1.2 billion to CBC, and also about $500 million to the mainstream media during the pandemic, and with all the advertising, the propaganda. So that's why, you had during the pandemic one narrative coming from the government, and the media didn't allow any dissident voices. And that's very bad. That's very bad for the democracy. And now they want to put more censorship. We have the censorship coming from the big techs and the big corporation, Twitter, YouTube. Actually, I'm shadow banned right now on Twitter. Usually I'm growing by 1,000 new followers every week. And for the last month, I'm still at the same number of followers, about 185,000 followers. So I'm shadow banned, and that's a real censorship. So now Trudeau wants to add to that by the government, a civil servant. If you're very popular on YouTube and you will be like a media, you'll have to pay a tax, and you'll be regulated by the CRTC. So we don't want that. But actually, yeah, there's a bill C-11 in from the House, and we are against that for sure.
So I got to say, a lot of people have jumped on the Ukraine bandwagon, and myself and Rick have pointed out a lot of things that are quite wrong with that situation. What's your party's stance on Ukraine, and what's your observations about everything that goes with that, whether it's spending and draining out Canada's military supplies entirely and that sort of stuff. What are your thoughts? I'm interested to know.
But first, we must remember the history. 19 around the 1960s, John F. Kennedy was the president of the United States, and you had the Soviet Union, and the Soviet wanted to have a base in Cuba, and that was the Cuba crisis. And Kennedy said, "No, I don't want you to have a base at my doors." And so he was successful. The Soviet didn't put any Soviet base in Cuba. And after that, we had the Cold War. And during the Cold War, we said to the Soviet Union that we have NATO, and NATO won't expand. NATO is there to protect North America, and that's it. But we didn't follow that. We expanded NATO to Europe, to France, Germany. And now, we pushed Ukraine. And we asked the president of Ukraine, Ukraine, you're welcome. You can be part of NATO. And that was a big mistake, because I understand Putin. I'm not pro-Putin. I'm not pro. He's a dictator, a murderer. And so, but what I must say is Putin said, I don't want any NATO base in Ukraine at my doors, like Kennedy did. And so that was the kind of the beginning of that crisis. And now, you have Ukraine, you have Putin. And I said publicly in the beginning of that war that Canada must not influence anything on that war. It's not our war. What we must do, we must push for a diplomatic solution. And the diplomatic solution must be for us in the West to say to Putin, yes, we won't put any NATO base at your doors in Ukraine, and having a discussion, a diplomatic discussion. But now, after I don't know how many days, 50, 51, 53 days, we are still in a war over there. And it's sad because everybody is losing, Ukraine and Russia. And now you have, Russian national hockey players, that there's a discussion for them not to be able to play. We don't need to do that against these people. They didn't do anything wrong. Because they're Russian, they have the right to play. They have the right to play tennis. They have the right to play their sport. And I don't like that. That's a war. That's very bad. That's a deadly war. It must end. And so we at the PPC believe in a peaceful ending. We will always push for peace and prosperity, and we must push for more a diplomatic solution as soon as possible. But Trudeau and the Conservatives are doing the opposite. They are sending arms and money to Ukraine when we don't have any money. We are broken. People must understand that. We don't have any money. We are broken, huge deficit, big debt. The debt actually in Canada right now, it's $1,000 billion. That's our debt. We will have to pay that. So we must fight for Canadian first and our sovereignty first. So that's why we are the only national political party that is saying no to that war, that is saying no, that we don't need to interfere in that. And that's our position.
100%. That's exactly what we've been saying here since the beginning of this particular conflict. I'd like to talk about immigration briefly, because you were sounding the alarm on immigration a long time ago. You've been consistent on that. And I think that you probably are going to tell us that your predictions are now coming true, because a lot of young Canadians in particular may never be able to afford to buy a home.
Yeah, and that's because of immigration. Mass immigration. We're not against immigration. We are for a sustainable immigration. And 450,000 newcomers every year, that's mass immigration for a country of 38 million people. That's mass immigration. And actually, the finance minister Minister Freeland, admitted that, and she said, it's a mathematical problem. We have more people, and these people need a house, and she's right. But the solution is in front of our eyes. We just have to go back to the average that we had under Harper. At that time, we had 250,000 a year. I'm saying that 150,000 a year must be maximum in the beginning, and having more people that will come here and be able to work and to integrate our society. So immigration, it's because of immigration that we have these prices going up. And also the policy from the Bank of Canada with the target of 2% inflation. 2% inflation or 20% inflation is bad. Inflation is bad. You are losing your purchasing power. Everybody is paying that inflation tax. Everybody is becoming poor. I don't believe that a Canadian worker will have an increase in his salary this year at 6.7%. If it's not the case, he's losing. We are losing, and we are paying for these deficit and debt. And so the solution for immigration, a sustainable immigration, that will help prices for houses in big cities will go down. And but they don't want to speak about that solution because they believe in mass immigration and always more and more people.
You say you want candidates in every riding by the next election. How can people get involved and support the party, or maybe even become a candidate if they want to do that?
Yeah, at the last general election, we had 313 candidates on 338 ridings. And so this time we want to have a full slate. And so people can be in touch. They can write to us at info@peoplespartyofcanada.ca, info@peoplespartyofcanada.ca. It can take maybe 2 to 3 days before we answer your email, because the good news is we received a lot of emails, and I appreciate that. And we're very serious about it. We are answering all our emails. So if you want to be part, email to us. And yes, you can be a candidate. You can be on the board of a riding of your local riding association. You can be a volunteer. You can be a member. Go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and together we can start that ideological freedom revolution, because we need that in our country.
Just back briefly, if you would, to the next election and the debates. You said that you will be involved in the next debates. Is that a done deal? Because they wouldn't let you the last time, which I thought was a terrible situation.
Yeah, I was part of the debate at our first election in 2019. And at the second election, they changed the rules. And they said, for a new party, you need to have 4% of the vote. And so we had 1.6%. So I wasn't able to be part of that debate at the last election. But we had 5%. So the rule that they said it's 4%. We had more support than the Green Party. The Green Party had 2%. And they were part of the debate. So I strongly believe that the next election, because we had 4% at the last election, that was the condition. I think 4% at the election before, and we had 5%. And I strongly believe that I'll be there, and that will be a real debate that time. I can tell you that.
I think it'll be energetic and lively, to say the least.
It won't be a bunch of socialists just standing around agreeing with each other.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was there at the first debate, sorry, they had people asking questions to politicians, and I had in front of me, an old lady, maybe 65, 70 years old, and she said, "What will you do for my pension?" And I was the last one to answer that question, and all the other one will give you more money, will do that. And I said, no, I won't do anything for your pension. We don't have the money for that. We need to balance the budget before. Sorry about that. That's the truth. That's the reality. And if you don't like what I'm saying, don't vote for me. And that was pretty clear. And I remember after that, when I was back on the road and campaigning, people said, "Oh, Bernier, I really appreciate what you said, and you were not, you were direct and answering a question with facts. And we don't pander to any special interest group. We are doing politics for all Canadians. That's it.
Well, Max, I know that we wanted to kind of limit the time here a little bit tonight because you're so busy. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on tonight? Anything that we might have missed that is of importance?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity and for what you're doing. It's very important. We need to have more people like you, and I hope that you won't be censored. It's always a big challenge. Try to be on social media, but I appreciate it, and I hope that in the near future, if you want to know more about the People's Party and our policies, don't hesitate to be in touch with us. And for me, the last message for our viewers is, the People's Party of Canada is the only party that, we have faith in people. We have faith that you have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make your own decisions and determine your own destiny. We are putting people first, not big fat government, not bureaucrats. And that's why we created that party based on 4 principles that we always follow: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with that. That's why the platform that we ran on at the last election will be the same one at the next one. And if you like what I'm saying, I hope that you'll be a little bit more curious and go on our website, read our platform, and don't hesitate to write to us. I believe that all together we can do that freedom revolution in our country.
And you also do your own podcast or videos online as well. How can people find those?
Every 2 weeks. So next, not this Thursday, not tonight, I'm with you. Next Thursday, I'll be live. We call that the Mad Max Live, an hour at 7 o'clock p.m. So people, we are on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter. And so I'm taking some questions also every 2 weeks.
Outstanding. Well, folks, there you have it. Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada. Max, thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with us tonight. I'm sure that the viewers will find what you've said to be very valuable. And again, on behalf of Canada and all of our Maverick family here, thank you for being consistent and true to your word.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for what you're doing, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And
thank you so much.
Hey, reach out anytime, okay? If you ever need anything, so let us know.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get you back on again soon.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
been a pleasure.
Right.
Thank you, sir. You have a great night.
Thank you.
And there you have it, folks. Maxime Bernier, PPC leader. And honestly, he has been so consistent. He does what he says he's going to do. Find me another politician who does that. I can maybe think of 1 or 2 others, and I'm not even sure about them. But he's proven it over and over and over again. He went to jail for you. Yeah. So think about that the next time you go to the polls. That in itself says a lot.
He's strong in his conviction. He loves his country. He's a true patriot.
And a class act. I mean, when he was arrested, remember what happened when he was arrested and the cop said to him, do you have any weapons on you?
Maybe we should just play the video.
If you have it, yeah.
I can get that.
He was so cool under pressure and had the presence of mind to come back with what I thought was one of it'll go down in history as a great Canadian quote.
I think it will too. I got the video here. Just gonna block this commercial here, and so this is what happened last year.
I couldn't believe it when they arrested him. I was astonished. But here it is.
I'll get you signature, okay? Thank you.
The other hand?
That's People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier being arrested in Manitoba today.
Oh, that's not the raw
took him into
footage.
custody just outside of Winnipeg after he...
Oh, they blocked out what he said.
Of course they did, because, that's what they do. They're all about spin and censorship. So what did he say? The cop said, do you have any weapons on you? And he said, no, only my words.
No weapon, only my word and my philosophy, something like that. And that's amazing, really. And he was really calm. I mean, being arrested must be a stressful thing. I don't know. I've never been arrested. Maybe I'll find out now that I hang out with you all the time. But
wait a minute.
But in either case,
I can state for the record, I've never been arrested either, but I'm working on it just by being on here.
But anyway, what a class act. He's really, really composed. Like, just that's amazing.
And if they don't let him participate in the next debates, there's something seriously corrupt and wrong. He should have been involved in the last debates. No question about it. And then we saw across the country the chambers of commerce, which in most communities also run debates at the local level, and they adopted the same policy so that they prevented local candidates in all the ridings across the country from participating in debates as well, which I thought was also unfair and just plain unethical.
Hugely.
It's a form of censorship is what they were engaging in. So yeah, I hope they better let him participate in the next one. 5% support nationally. Amazing growth for the party when you really think about it.
Yeah, it's unheard of in Canadian politics for a new party to come out and get that type of a growth. And a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their heads around it too. And I mean, you guys really like Rick rants, but I'll tell you, you missed the best one when Maxime Bernier wasn't allowed in the debate. Rick had the Rick rant that day. That was a whole different level of Rick rant.
Yeah. And these conservative leadership hopefuls, they're all ranting about freedom now. It's just like, so you've got Jean Charest. He's basically a liberal, right? He's a liberal.
He's an orange Tory, I would call him.
Yeah. Okay. So he's emailing people talking about freedom. He's saying that we can never let these lockdowns happen again. We need to have an inquiry. Well, where were you for the past 2 years, pal? Seriously. And then Poilievre, sort of the same thing. He's on the freedom train now, right? He's going to make Canada the freest country on the face of the planet. Okay. Where were you 2 years ago? I went back and I was looking at some of, his clips from like even a year ago, year and a half ago. He wasn't as adamant about freedom back then. He was just being critical of the nuance in the way the Liberals, the way Justin Trudeau, the way they were handling the COVID response and handing out all of the free money in support payments to businesses and to some degree to individuals. But he wasn't that vocal about preserving freedom and preserving people's rights.
No,
the polling was a whole lot different back then. Plus, he wasn't, the leadership campaign wasn't on at that time. So he was sort of under the thumb of Aaron O'Toole. But I think the mark of a true leader is someone who stands up on a basis of principle, on a consistent basis, regardless of what it might mean even for their political career, right?
Yeah. Now, I'll tip my hat to Pierre on one thing. He's been saying just inflation for over a year, more or less. Now they're blaming inflation on Putin. So thank God he was doing that, because, people who had the blinders on would have probably just believe it. But I think he has mentioned it enough times that people kind of understand that I don't really buy that this is Putin's inflation. This is just inflation.
But see, the problem with all these conservatives, and it's the same thing with Doug Ford, is people think they're conservatives just because they take a conservative approach to economics. So if they're fiscally conservative, he's a real conservative. We better vote for Doug Ford because he's for buck a beer and lower taxes or whatever other economic policies he might have. And Pierre Poilievre goes around talking about inflation and money printing and all of those key fiscal conservative policies. So he's on the right side of that. But as far as I'm concerned, what good is any of that if you don't have your freedom? So
yeah, for sure.
He might have been spouting off about just inflation, which is a campaign slogan, a little phrase that he came up with that's kind of cute. Okay, fair enough. Whatever, you're talking about inflation, but I'm more concerned that to me, that has not been the top issue for the past 2 years.
No,
it's been freedom. It's been the charter. It's been the use of the notwithstanding clause. It's been the invocation of the Emergencies Act. Those are the things that have been a direct assault on Canadians, specifically a very targeted group of Canadians who have been fighting for freedom. And where was Pierre Poilievre in the early days of that? If you want a true leader, you need somebody who is consistent in what they stand up for, but also someone who is able, at the beginning of any kind of crisis and when an issue emerges, that they recognize what the right and wrong side of these issues are from the beginning so that they make good decisions on behalf of the country. If you have Paul, it's easy to sit there and employ hindsight because that's always 2020. But and maybe more to the point, if you're a politician, after these issues kind of roll out, it's quite easy to sit there a year later or 2 years later and take a stand on something because the polls show that public opinion has shifted in a particular direction. So as Max just pointed out, yes, it's quite a lot. It's more popular now and a lot safer to talk about freedom today than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Brendan, you and I, we were consistent from the beginning, right? We were out there I was out there on street corners right from day one.
Yeah,
I was out there, I was against the masks from day one. And a handful of other people as well. And then it's built from there. But man, it was not popular. And I had a lot of people wishing me dead when they pulled up on the street corner and rolled their window down to, say, hey, dude, hope you get COVID and die.
That's exactly it. I've been consistent this whole way through. And the only thing that's really changed for me is I had watched a video at some point. It was a political video. And they asked a question. And it was something of the nature of, do you think that the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms should be changed or altered? And I was like, what? No, don't ever do that. But now I'm like, yeah, change it. It needs to be fixed. Fix it now.
Yeah, we need to get we just need to make sure that these rights are actually enshrined so that they can't be taken away from the people. We can't have this. Not
for anything as cheap as which they were trampled on for.
No, they have to be there, and period. I mean, with I can't really think of an exception. Even in a time of war, people need to have their rights, as far as I'm concerned. Because what did we just see? We saw that when we needed the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it wasn't there for us. Not there. Well, because all the government had to do was say, "Oh, there's an emergency. The sky is falling," and then nobody has any rights anymore. We have to, as Justin Trudeau puts it, we have to protect your rights by taking your rights away, which is just freaking stupid.
No, it is stupid, and I'll never argue that. But I would argue in time of war, there is certain things that are, when it comes to things that involve direct results of violence or something of that nature. Like, oh, you can't go to your house right now because there's an active shooter down there. It's like, well, I think that would be a reasonable thing, but I don't think when it comes to public health measures that it should lead to anything
we
infringing.
have those things in place before, and that and to enact things like that, you don't need to strip people of all their rights, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, right, freedom of speech, just because there might be danger down the street because a train has derailed. Police have certain powers to keep people safe by restricting access to particular areas where there might be, say, a chemical leak, or, as you pointed out, an active shooter where someone, might get shot. But those are, very limited.
Yes.
And those are not really, constitutional questions at the federal level so much. And they're always limited in scope and in time.
They are very limited in scope and time. In fact, most Canadians will probably spend their whole life without seeing that situation. And I hope.
Or if there's a fire down the street, then they block off the street to keep people. That's all fine. I get that. But that's not stripping people of their rights, right? What we've seen here is a wholesale dismantling of our charter. It's just been shredded. We honestly, in my view, we don't have any freedom in the country anymore.
No,
and what we've seen with Bill 100 in Ontario, similar legislation rolling out in other provinces, those are that's legislation at the provincial level, which is aimed directly at the charter, because the charter was written with provinces specifically in mind, because the Bill of Rights is a federal document, but it's also very limited in what it actually protects in terms of your rights. And it doesn't extend out to the provinces the way the charter was supposed to and appeared to at the time back in the 80s when it was signed. Right? Anyway, we can talk about this in more detail maybe another day. And we're seeing that Brian Peckford, the last surviving author of the charter, is challenging the government's end run around the charter through the use of the Emergencies Act. And I don't think that they were justified. I think that in using the notwithstanding clause in the way that they did, so that they could render the charter impotent. But we will see how it all rolls out. And I applaud Max and the others who are involved in this lawsuit. You and I were talking the other night about how it needs to, these mandates, these travel mandates and the restrictions still in place against people who are unvaccinated. So if you're unvaccinated, you still can't get on a plane or a train. These need to be challenged in the court. Well, I'm glad to see that it is being challenged. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms taking the lead on that with Maxime. And he said, I think it was a total of seven people, I guess, individuals or organizations involved in this group legal action. So we certainly need to get behind that and support what they're doing. And the JCCF, they do great work. And the funny thing is that I noticed during the pandemic that the left-wing media was often trying to characterize the JCCF as a far-right political organization. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, which is a legal organization working independently to defend the Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, to defend your freedoms as our freedoms as Canadians. And they're portraying this as a far-right organization. These people are insane. Absolutely insane. Somehow, freedom has become synonymous, if you're on the left, with fascism.
Well,
they don't understand what fascism is.
I do have a theory that the People's Party of Canada in the last federal election did steal more votes from the more left-leaning political parties, so the NDP and the Liberals, because our fundamentals are all the same at the end of the day. And so left-leaning people who are all about free speech, all about the fundamentals, freedom of movements, et cetera, they came into that movement for that reason. And I think more of them did than homeless conservatives at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, the things that people on the left and on the right argue about are small because we usually always agree on the fundamentals. If you get what I'm saying.
Used to, I think. less so these days. There's a lot more polarization. But I'll say this. Maxime Bernier, by far the strongest leader at the federal level of any of the federal parties. By far. And there was polling done in the last election as well that showed the public thought he would make the best prime minister. That's if you want to talk about polling, that was a poll that was conducted during the election. He was seen by Canadians as being the strongest leader. And I believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't know who the Conservatives will end up with. It may very well be Pierre. It could be one of the others. Politics is a strange game, and there's still a lot of ground to cover between now and the decision that the Conservative Party makes when they choose their next leader. But I'll tell you this, whoever it is, they're going to be up against some pretty stiff opposition, at least on the leadership side, when they compared to Maxime Bernier, who, by the way, came within 1% of winning the Conservative leadership himself while he was a member of the Conservative Party. But again, true to his word. I'm sorry, I keep just cutting off because of the delay here in the audio, I think, Brendan. But true to his word, he stood by his convictions, his beliefs, went off and started his own party because he felt that the Conservatives were just too far gone, too corrupt, and just not invested in true conservative ideology.
Yeah. That's for sure. Well, I think now we should roll the 30-second break clip and roll into the next segment. Sure. We do have additional content. We were only able to book Max for the 30-minute time frame today, as he is very busy. He's working on stuff. But we still do have an awesome show for the rest of the evening. Stay tuned. And we're just going to roll this quick 30-second clip here. We'll be right back.
Stay with us.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can donate at freedomreporters.com. You can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions and support our work here. We do need your help. We're here fighting an information war, and we are on the front lines in that information war, as you've seen here tonight. We haven't gone to jail yet, but you never know. We are working on it because we're here stepping on some socialist, left-wing, radical, fascist toes every night. And believe me, sooner or later, they're going to catch up with us. So support us while you can. Keep on watching because you never know if we're going to be here tomorrow. But we will continue to fight, and we are expanding our operation. We're expanding it onto other social media platforms. I think probably by next week we'll have some additional platforms online. And our website should be up probably by next week as well. So that's an encouraging thing as well. And we couldn't have been even achieved what we have so far without you guys. We are extremely grateful for the support we've had so far. You guys have become like family to us. we do have a Maverick family happening here, and you guys are all a bunch of Maverick Top Guns as far as I'm concerned.
You could also support us by giving this video a thumbs up, sharing it with all your friends and all your family. Furthermore, you could also subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. So with that being said, without further ado, we'll move on with the show. So Rick, you had an interesting story lined up. We talked about it before we were on the show today, and I'm excited to talk about it. It's something that you caught that I kind of didn't, so I haven't actually seen it yet, but...
Yeah. Well, this, I don't even like to tell you this stuff, folks. And again, I'm going to tell you some things that as Canadians and Americans, you probably don't want to hear this. I don't like knowing it. I wish a lot of days I wish I didn't know what I know, because ignorance is bliss. But right now, there are terrorists on their way to Ukraine to fight the Russians alongside the Ukrainian forces. These are basically Al-Qaeda fighters. Do you ever wonder why things don't make sense in our countries anymore? You ever stop to think, why is it that, like, back 15 years ago, we were fighting the war on terror and we were fighting against Al-Qaeda. And then in the next breath, as the next chapter opens, we see our prime minister giving terrorists $10 million. And it seems like the government has suddenly flipped the script. And for some reason, we seem to be in league with terrorists. It doesn't seem to quite make sense. And the government doesn't really come right out and say it. A lot of this just doesn't seem to as I say, it just seems kind of crazy. Well, folks, I'll tell you why. Can we just pull that off, please, Brendan?
Oh, sorry, it was meant to put up the Omar Khadr thing, but anyway, go ahead.
No, don't worry about that. Everybody kind of knows the Omar Khadr story. I don't want to get too deep into that. That's almost like it's going to lead us down just a slightly different path. What is important is tonight we have terrorists on their way to Ukraine. And here's just one of the stories about it. This is from Al Mayadeen. And what we're seeing here is about 450 extremists from various nationalities arrive in Idlib to fight against Russian troops after leaving Syria and passing through Turkey. Why is this happening? Because this is the way our leaders play the game these days. And you probably don't want to know this. So some of this information is coming through Sputnik, one of the Russian news agencies, where relatives of the extremists have confirmed to them, and this will all be confirmed, guaranteed. So what we know is that relatives of some of these extremists told journalists that fighters from the terrorist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is a rebranded terrorist group called Jabhat al-Nusra, which is, what is that? It's just a rebranded Al-Qaeda. It's like this is Al-Qaeda. These guys are Al-Qaeda terrorists.
Damn.
So they're answering the call from Volodymyr Zelensky for foreign fighters to come in. And as I said last night, this war in Ukraine, if you really want to look at it honestly, what is it? It's a proxy war. It's a war that is being waged by the United States mainly and the supporting countries through NATO, and they're fighting this proxy war with Russia through Ukraine. I told you before that they really wanted to fight this war through Syria before, back in like 2015, 2016. I could see all the propaganda happening then, but then the US presidential election happened and Clinton's plans were derailed and it just didn't unfold quite the way that they wanted to. So they never really got to, there were a lot of efforts to to pull US troops into Syria and bring more NATO, US, and Canadian involvement in that conflict. But it didn't quite unfold the way they wanted it to. And a lot of that was because of Trump, and his foreign policies were different, and he wanted to keep all of us, keep the West out of these wars, and we didn't go to war when Trump was in office, okay? So that's why he was also accused constantly of being a Russian stooge. Russia, 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 the whole Russia hoax. And we're seeing a lot of that even play out now with there's some charges that are being laid as a result of the Germ report, which is now coming to some degree to some fruition. But here, what we have going on is something that's actually, it's an old strategy that they've been using since, really the Cold War. And it's pretty disgusting. And the average person doesn't really understand what they're doing. They can't really send in U.S. troops, like official U.S. troops or Canadian troops. Because if they do, now it's like, that's like a full-on, let's go to war with Russia. Let's get right up in his face and see how the chips fall, right? And I think to some degree they'd like to do that, as we illustrated earlier this week. But what they're really doing here is they are getting into bed with neo-Nazis in Ukraine, terrorists from other countries, including Al-Qaeda. And they've done this before over and over again, whether you're looking at Syria or you're looking at any of these countries in the Middle East. So one day they're fighting Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and then the next day or the next year, they're arming Al-Qaeda in Syria to go up against the Russian forces and the Syrian forces in that country, a country that has basically been destroyed over the past decade.
You could also take it back a couple of decades before that, because, under George Bush Sr., he had funded and armed Osama bin Laden. That's a very well-known story, because at the time, Russia was in Afghanistan at that point. It's just this vicious circle of the same stuff happening over and over and over and over again.
And look at this guy right here. Like this guy, the markings, that indicates that, to me anyway, that he is part of a terrorist group. The insignia right here on his fatigues.
Yeah.
So why do we do this? Because the United States, NATO, Canada, it isn't about, for them, defending democracy. It isn't about doing what's right. Not really. Not really. It's about money. It's about arms sales. It's about furthering political interests, many of which I think for these politicians are selfish interests in a country that is corrupt, namely Ukraine, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And in order to achieve their political goals, we've seen time and time again that they're willing to get into bed with just about anybody, including terrorists that just a short time ago we were supposed to be at war with.
We
fighting a war on terror.
How much government propaganda have we been fed? Oh, we need to be afraid of the terrorists. Oh, the terrorists are out for you. And then it creates this whole kind of backlash against Muslim culture. Some of it, I don't know. Looking back on the 2000s now and what we have now, in my opinion, there are aspects of Islam that deserve critical thinking. It is not without criticism. And now you can't even do that because, well, that's Islamophobia. Oh, blah, 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 blah. It's like,
Well, what we're getting now is Russia-phobia,
no, we're getting
and it's
Russia.
not right. It's not fair, but it's all part of the current propaganda that we're getting from our own government and the mainstream media here in Canada and the United States. It's craziness, folks, and the majority of people do buy it because they don't know any better. They don't know the history. They're too busy just living, most people are just too busy living their lives. They don't dig too deep into international politics. Most people don't dig too deep into domestic politics. They're just too busy trying to make a living, take care of their families. Totally understandable. But when you have a situation like that, it's quite easy for the government to pull the wool over a lot of people's eyes and then do crazy, inhumane things. What did we see from Justin Trudeau yesterday, talking about sending more heavy artillery? But he can't tell you too much about how much we're sending or where it's coming from or exactly where it's going to or how much money is really going to be spent as we just send over more heavy artillery that we can ill afford to finance. Canadian military doesn't have much to begin with, but boy, he's going to send a bunch over there.
And just for dramatic point, so take a look at the difference. I'm going to steal the screen for a second, if that's okay, Rick.
Sure, yeah.
This is how ABC is reporting this story. Look at the difference in title. Syrian fighters. It's like, what?
Right. But who are these Syrian fighters? They're actually, what they are is they are Al-Qaeda fighters, terrorists who, during the Syrian conflict, a lot of them were sent to Idlib instead of being killed. They were sort of given an ultimatum by the forces at the time. It was like, you guys go here or you're dead. So they're not like in prison there or anything, but they've been sort of corralled. They were sort of corralled into that area during the Syrian war. So that's kind of what's gone on. And so you have this concentration of terrorist fighters there. And now because the Ukraine border is basically open and it's a free for all, these guys are like, oh yeah, let's go. We're going to fight. So you have this, wow, it's like this crazy unholy alliance really of neo-Nazis like the Azov battalion, or like real Nazis that the media also is denying exist. Even though before the conflict, these mainstream media outlets had done documentaries of their own highlighting and illustrating the existence and proliferation of neo-Nazis and long-time, well-established Nazi groups dating all the way back to World War II that were collaborators, had collaborations with, through these organizations, with the Nazis in Germany during World War II. So there's a long history there. NBC News, we showed you a documentary where they highlighted all of this. But now today, no, you're not allowed to talk about that. But it's true. If, they'll say that we're lying to you, that we're making all this up and that this is propaganda in itself. But they were the ones telling people about it 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's who they are. It's not just Syrian fighters. These are the fighters, some of them that were really employed as hired guns, terrorists who were employed by NATO and the United States to fight basically what was a proxy war in Syria against the Russians there. And they don't like the Russians because They went to war with them in Syria. They basically were getting their butts kicked. And now they're heading off to Ukraine to continue the fight, as it were. And they're doing this, let's be honest, they're doing it on behalf of us. They're doing it on behalf of our governments, on behalf of NATO. They're aligned with NATO. They're aligned with these Nazi groups in Ukraine, which are there fighting along other Ukrainian military forces. And don't kid yourself, okay? Don't let them pull the wool over your eyes. This is really what's going on. So when Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden talk about sending arms over there, who are we arming? You're arming these guys. And in fact, I saw some other reports today that suggest that even the United States is not sure where some of the weapons that they've been sending over there, they don't know where they're ending up. They're having trouble tracking them. Big surprise, right?
Of course.
Big surprise.
And you were talking last night. You were just shouting about it last night, about accountability for these politicians on our military equipment and our money. And I mean, Joe Biden made an announcement today. I think we should look at that in a little while. Not quite yet, but it's very important to note the type of atrocities these terrorist organizations have committed. These are guys who will go into like a girls' school and throw acid in their face for being in schools. Like, these are real atrocities. These are people who will throw gay people off of high rises and stuff like that. Like, if you want to talk about tyranny and oppression, like, holy gee, it is bad over there. It is bad. They have no rights over there at all.
And then we saw the Prime Minister asked yesterday by, I believe it was a CBC reporter, about Canadians in Syria fighting. The Prime Minister didn't really deny it. He acknowledged that, yes, there are some Canadians there. But of course...
did you say Syria or Afghanistan? Or
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay.
Sorry, Ukraine. So... you know, he's acknowledging that there are Canadians over there right now fighting. I think that complicates things immensely. And I don't think the government should be encouraging anyone to go and fight, not as an individual. And we certainly can't be sending troops in there for obvious reasons, because then we're just admitting that we want to go to war with Russia and that we're... working toward regime change in Russia, which I think is honestly what the policy of the United States is. But more than that, I guess the point that I'm trying to make here too is that this whole situation is ripe for corruption. You have a prime minister who's, at least at this point, not being fully transparent about where these arms are going. How much money is changing hands? Who's getting this money? Who's getting the arms? And then once it's over in Ukraine, do we ever get it back? Or how do we track it? How do we make sure that some people aren't just lining their pockets? Because it seems to me that in a situation like this, as we've seen before, some people get very, very rich. And do you think for 1 minute, honestly, that the United States under Joe Biden left all that military hardware in Afghanistan because they had no choice? Just didn't know what else to do. Guess we just have to leave it behind and leave it with the Taliban. Oh, yeah, our sworn enemies. Really? Isn't that odd? This stuff just seems to keep happening over and over and over again. How unfortunate, I guess, for the U.S. taxpayer to see all that military hardware fall into the hands of our sworn enemies, the Taliban. Yeah, well, you know what? The United States has been arming the Taliban in certain situations over a past number of years, because again, we have leaders who are not being honest and truthful with us, and in many respects, we're on the wrong side of some of this conflict. Not to say that Putin's on the right side, he's not. But this war never had to happen. And right now, it's pretty clear that, as Max said, we need a negotiated settlement, but our side's not interested.
We're all losers here.
Yeah, and we should all be asking why. Why aren't they interested in a negotiated settlement? We're not asking the right questions, and we're not holding our leaders accountable because too many of us are just drinking the Kool-Aid and believing what they're telling us.
You hit on a good point there about corruption and lining pockets. There is a lot of opportunities for corruption and lining pockets here. And traditionally, in other war-torn countries or other conflicts that they've had, a lot of this stuff disappears from military warehouses and ends up into the hands of the black market on a regular basis. It's how it works.
Yeah.
And so the U.S. can't account for where a lot of the weapons are going. And just, wow, what a big mess.
So I'm sorry, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's really what's been is going on now. It's been going on for a long time. This isn't anything new. This is just a replay of the same BS that we've seen play out in the Middle East over and over and over again, where the public is fed this narrative, but it's really not the story. It's not a truthful story.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all paying for it, folks. We're paying for it with our tax dollars. Because they're not, let me make this clear too. This heavy artillery that Justin Trudeau promised yesterday, and now I understand Joe Biden, and I think we've got a news conference with him that we're going to queue up here shortly and run his comments from today, but he's looking for more money. So we're sending billions of dollars in aid over there. They're not paying for it. We're paying for it. You're paying for it. Canadians, U.S. citizens, we're financing all of this. We are. And we're doing that with our tax dollars and with borrowed money. Our governments are doing this. They're borrowing from our children's and our grandchildren's futures to finance this crap over in Ukraine.
And it's very clear we can't afford this.
No.
We ain't got no money.
No.
We're all running on credit card economies over here.
The average regular Canadian, the regular American, we can't afford this. All this stuff has to stop. But they keep on rocking and rolling and spending the money, and it's big money, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Arms sales. But they're not selling the arms, they're just giving it away. We're paying for it, and then they give it away. They give it away. To why? Because they're not really giving it away. They're putting it in the hands of people so that other people can fight and die to do the bidding of our leaders.
And so what's everybody else's thoughts on this? We should probably dig through some of the comments. We've been a little negligent with the Mav fam.
Jack Frost says, Rick Walker, it's not tax money. We can't afford our own debt. It's just a promise that we will pay it back. Yeah, well, that's the other thing is I don't think we'll ever be able to pay it back. And that's what these politicians are doing too. They've got as I said before, they've got their foot on the gas and they're driving us right over a cliff. And they've got it right to the floor now. Julie Waters says, we'll give it to the Taliban. Yep. Sandra Martin says, money goes to criminal activity. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All Seeing Heart says, until mass disobedience happens, nothing will change. The liars will keep on lying, right? Yeah. I don't know how you get through to people either, right? Because a lot of this stuff, they roll their eyes. People can't wrap their heads around this stuff. They don't have the time. And it's too depressing for some people.
It's too
complicated. Yeah, it's polarizing. And who wants to be like Brendan and I, right? We're political lepers when we go out into the community because 80% of the people are all out there. If you talk to them about it, they're just regurgitating what they've seen on CBC, CTV, Global, blah, 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 right?
I have a new business venture for us. So a part of us doing the Maverick Show, you could also hire myself and Rick to attend your family functions for your relatives that you don't like, and we could go in there and say all of this stuff right in front of them. We'll lash it out for them. $100 an event a piece.
For all the relatives you don't like, we'll clear them out.
Yeah.
No problem. We'll just come in and start talking.
Nazis in Ukraine. There's no Nazis in Ukraine. The president is Jewish. That's a cheap argument, and you know it, Uncle Charlie. Anyway.
But it's true. Like, so it's a lot easier for people just to go along. Oh, yeah, I saw this on the news. I'll repeat that. It seems to be true because they said this on the news, right? Claire, there's our first gig, Brendan.
All right, perfect.
Claire says, "I'm in." Yeah.
Travel expenses included.
Yeah, we are the Wedding Crashers. That's funny. 35,000 is an odd number. Canada's national debt is over $2 trillion. All Seeing Heart says, I'll take a fourth shot and a fifth. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Isn't that crazy when you think about it? They're up to like a fourth shot here in Canada. And
we're not talking
in the
Jack
States
Daniels.
too. Yeah. My God. 4. And we were told in the beginning, you take the shot and you won't get the virus that shall not be named. You take the shot, it's 97% effective. And the second one, that's just to be sure. And then you can go, then we get our lives back. And now we're on to shot number 4 for people. Number 4. When's it going to end?
I can't get over it either.
Never. It'll never end.
I don't think people are buying it either, because there was a story a couple weeks ago where Canada is having to throw out over 1 million different pokes that they can't administer in people. Over 1 million different doses. Could you imagine that?
John Murnick says an Ontario NDP campaign guy came to his door just now wearing a mask outside. I asked him why a mask. He said party policy.
That's no party.
Yes. Yes. Think about that. Think about what you're voting for. I mean, I think we're preaching to the choir here with our audience, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have some campaign worker, politician, NDP, and then he answers like that, where do you think they're going to go when they get into power? What are they going to do? They're going to make you wear a damn mask too for the rest of your freaking life.
I dare them to come into my house. I dare them. I'll have a nice polite chat with them.
It is discouraging, isn't it? It really is. The psychological damage. These masks are like badges, people wear them because it shows their political obedience and to a degree their political affiliation.
Big time. It's all about the virtue signal. It shows everybody how virtuous they are. And it's an amazing comparison. We showed everybody the story about when the mask mandates were dropped in the United States by the Florida judge. Her name escapes me right now, but you can look this up for yourself if you weren't here that day. But they dropped it, and Twitter was full of people who received the announcement from the airlines over the Atlantic Ocean, et cetera, et cetera. People were cheering. People were singing. There was a stewardess. She cried her eyes out because of all the trauma and stress she'd been through. People were celebrating on the planes. No more masks. Do you think that people really liked the masks? They would have been, I'm going to keep wearing mine. But overwhelmingly, nobody wanted to wear it when the rule was lifted. There's a lot of pushback on it now, but those people weren't on that airline. I don't think that they have really a say in it. It's not a part
And
of
it depends on where you're located. I know that if you're in California or if you're here in Ontario, you still have a lot of people out there walking around outside wearing masks. It's going to take a long time. I don't know if we'll ever recover psychologically in this generation, in this lifetime, from what they've done to people psychologically. And here we see that this story today, that Russia has sanctioned 61 more Canadians, including top Trudeau staffers, premiers, mayors, and journalists. This, of course, is retaliation by Russia against Canada for the sanctions that we have been imposing. And Max touched on this as well, about athletes, Russian athletes who are, being told that they can't participate in sporting events, professional athletes, Olympians, just it's all crazy. But the people that they're naming, I think it's telling in a way as well. When I go down the list, 5 premiers: Ontario Premier Doug Ford, Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, and British Columbia Premier John Horgan, who's a far-left wackazoid. They're all on the list. Toronto Mayor John Tory. It's unfortunate that he has the last name Tory, because he's certainly no conservative.
No.
Even though he once ran for the leadership of the Conservative Party. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, who's also a far-left radical wackazoid. They've all been banned from Russia, as of Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Rae, left-winger. Bank of Canada Governor Tim Macklem, acting clerk of the Privy Council Janice Charette, former Foreign Affairs Minister Lloyd Axworthy, another liberal left-wing wackazoid, and former Senator Romeo Dallaire, who has a long history with the Canadian military, as you may be aware. So these people are being, they would be denied entry if they wanted to go to Russia. And it's in direct retaliation for Canada's ongoing imposition of sanctions on influential Russians, as we've seen, with Trudeau putting sanctions on Putin's daughters. Well, a lot of this is just posturing on both sides, right?
I highly doubt they're interested in coming to Canada, especially in the regard that Russia has pretty much all the same terrain and geography as Canada does. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to Canada for a nice, relaxing holiday. It's like, give me a break.
But isn't it interesting how, as you go through this list of names, every single one of these bureaucrats, every leader, every one of the politicians, these are all people who have been directly involved in tearing down and assaulting the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Isn't it interesting how these are all the same characters who very specifically have been the architects of our lockdowns?
Yes.
And the disintegration of our freedom in Canada. And Putin is sanctioning all of these people. It's I think, in a way, kind of telling, isn't it? As I said the other night, people are like, well, at least it's not China. No, in a lot of respects, when I talk to business people that I've been doing business with in China for a number of years, when I talk to them, and these are just like average people, Chinese people, right? Business people. The stories I get back tell me that things are actually worse in many respects right here in Canada than they are over there. There's no question in my mind about it. That the people over there, in many cases, have more freedoms. Now, we get stories, and we saw stuff out of Shanghai, all of that, those stories. But when I speak to people in like Shenzhen, no, It's not that much different over there than it is here. And I think that in many respects, they actually have more freedoms in China than we do here.
I've heard
It's
stuff like that too. The difference is the stuff coming out of Shanghai scares the crap out of me, and it seems like it was almost applauded by our media here because they love that sort of stuff, absolutely love it. Yeah, I think very easily our government would be more than interested to run a same kind of experiment that they did in Shanghai and adopt this.
And I think it's ironic that when you take it over to the Russian side,
Mhm.
we're seeing that isn't it ironic that we have Vladimir Putin trying to punish the people who have been punishing the Canadians?
Yeah, that is ironic. And speaking of all these interesting people that they have blocked from going to Russia, I did see one article today, and it had a statement from the mayor, Jim Watson. He's like, "Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if I was on the list." The mayor, Jim Watson of Ottawa. So interestingly enough, he didn't seem to be on the list. He's like, "Oh, I want to be a part of the cool club too." Block me, block me. That seems ridiculous. And this type of stuff doesn't do anything, right? It, like, oh, so what? Give me a break.
Yeah, well, they'll all try to wear it like a badge of honor, which is to be expected, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it is concerning, though, because it shows that there's just more escalation. We're not heading down the path toward talking to find reconciliation, to find a negotiated settlement to any of this stuff, to keep Ukraine neutral, to not make it part of NATO. Instead, you know what? Ukraine will end up being destroyed, blown to bits. And for what?
Mm-hmm.
This didn't have to happen. So
No.
It's strange. I don't know, man. These leaders that we have, they're terrible. We're just being led by terrible people right now. There's actual true evil at work here. I'm convinced of it. Absolutely.
Rick,
evil.
I like you, but please stop with those cough drops.
I'm sorry. I don't want to cough. I'll try to be quiet with my cough drops.
He's a real sucker. See what I did there? Boop.
Andre Morin waiting for a cartoonist to sketch Witch Freeland.
I think she might have already. If you guys haven't seen it before, check out Freedom Tunes. It's enjoyable.
Claire says, "I forgive you. Thank you. Thank you."
I
just still have a little bit of a
Rona.
No, it's not. It's not. I test negative. I'm not infected with coronavirus anymore. This is actually just a lingering little bit of a nasal thing. I get it usually around this time of year anyway, and it's because of the weather and mold in the air, and it just takes me usually about a week, sometimes two, to kind of completely get over it. And so I think just because I did get sick, it's just something that latched onto the end, and I'm just dealing with the residuals of that now. So being on here for 3 hours at a time, trying to talk when I have a little bit of this in my throat, it's a little bit of a challenge.
You're all right. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Big D says, millions of people know the truth. They don't care. They just going to carry out their plan regardless. And yeah, a lot of people feel powerless. A lot of people don't care.
Yeah. Jim Watson is number 48 on the list. That's the mayor of Ottawa.
So he is on the list.
Oh, yeah, he's absolutely on the list. I did mention him, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, he's on there, so he doesn't have to feel left out unless he wants to go to Russia. They'll leave him out. He's got the stop order on him, too.
Yeah. Interesting, he was complaining about the cost of the trucker convoy being in Ottawa, but he did make sure to go out of his way to spend money on a Ukraine sign to stick outside of the Russian embassy. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh.
All right. Should we roll into the Biden?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see what Sleepy Joe had to say today.
Here, I'll send you the link and I'll let you play it because I'll know you'll have lots of comments you'll want. It'll be easy for you to click it.
Okay.
So the link is in our private chat.
Got it.
You can just let it roll. So, the Prime Minister of Ukraine, I can't remember his name. Joe Biden will introduce his name when we play the video. He's making rounds with politicians and that sort of thing. So we'll have a discussion. There is some important things that are mentioned in this conference. So I do think that it's worth your time. It's worth my time. It's worth Rick's time. There's some good stuff to talk about here.
Yeah, we may or may not stop this during the course of playing it. We'll comment on it though. So let's let this roll, and then we'll opine on this.
Sorry, keep you waiting a little bit. I had
I
the
was
honor of spending
asleep.
some
I was
time
sleeping.
with the
Sorry.
Ukrainian Prime Minister who's in town today.
I needed my
and,
perineal care.
He is meeting with some of my cabinet members, including the Secretary of Treasury and others. And we had a good discussion. I talked about what I'm about to tell you about today, as well as he was thanking the American people for their support, understands it's significant, and we talked about keeping everyone together in terms of Europe, the European Union, and others in the effort to stop Putin's brutality. But before I head out to the West Coast, I want to quickly update the American people on the latest steps we're taking to support the people of Ukraine and to hold Putin accountable for his brutal and bloody war. Russian forces have retreated from Kyiv, leaving behind them a horrifying evidence. You've seen it, you reported it, your folks. And by the way, I don't say this often, but I think we should give enormous credit to folks from your agencies that are on the ground in Ukraine, in these spots, and they're really, I've spoken to several of them. We owe them. But uncovering these evidences of their atrocities and war crimes against Ukrainian people is so clear to the whole world now. Now they've launched and refocused their campaign to seize new territory in eastern Ukraine. And we're in a critical window now of time where they're going to set the stage for the next phase of this war. And the United States and our allies and partners are moving as fast as possible to continue to provide Ukraine the forces that they need, the weapons they need, the equipment they need. Their forces need to defend their nation. Last week, I signed an $800 million package of security assistance to Ukraine that included new capabilities like artillery systems and armored personnel carriers, equipment that is responsive to Ukraine's needs and tailored to support the intensified fighting in the Donbas region, which is a different war than in other places because both topographically it's different. It's flat, it's not in the mountains, and it requires different kinds of weapons to be more effective. Today, I'm announcing another $800 million to further augment Ukraine's ability to fight in the east, in the Donbas region. This package includes heavy artillery weapons, dozens of howitzers, and 144,000 rounds of ammunition to go with those howitzers. It also includes more tactical drones. In the past 2 months, we've moved weapons and equipment to Ukraine at record speed. We've sent thousands of anti-armor and anti-missile helicopters, drones, grenade launchers, machine guns, rifles, radar systems. More than 50 million rounds of ammunition had already been sent. The United States alone has provided 10 anti-armor systems for every one Russian tank that's in Ukraine, a 10-to-1 ratio. We're sharing and will continue to share significant timely intelligence with Ukraine to help defend them against Russian aggression. And on top of this, these direct contributions from the United States, we're the outfit facilitating the significant flow of weapons and systems to Ukraine from other allies and partners around the world, like the S-300 long-range anti-aircraft systems that Slovakia recently transferred to Ukraine. We are getting them in there. We won't always be able to advertise everything that our partners are doing to support Ukraine and its fight for freedom, but to modernize Teddy Roosevelt's famous advice, sometimes we will speak softly and carry a large javelin. because we're sending a lot of those in as well. But we're not sitting on the funding that Congress has provided for Ukraine. We're sending it directly to the front lines of freedom, to the fearless and skilled Ukrainian fighters who are standing in the breach. You got to admit, must be amazed at the courage of this country, the resolve that they're showing, not just their military, but the average citizen, men and women, young men, young women as well. It's, the sustained and coordinated support of the international community, led and facilitated by the United States, is a significant reason why Ukraine is able to stop Russia from taking over their country thus far. Every American taxpayer, every member of our armed forces can be proud of the fact that our country's generosity and the skill and service of our military helped arm and repel Russia's aggression in Ukraine, to beat back Putin's savagery that tried to seize Ukraine's capital and wipe out Ukraine's government. The Battle of Kyiv was a historic victory for the Ukrainians. It was a victory for freedom, won by the Ukrainian people with unprecedented assistance by the United States and our allies and our partners. Now we have to accelerate that assistance package to help prepare Ukraine for Russia's offensive that's going to be more limited in terms of geography, but not in terms of brutality. Not in terms of brutality. Combined with our recent drawdowns, it will ensure a steady flow of weapons and equipment into Ukraine over the next few weeks. However, with this latest disbursement, I've almost exhausted the drawdown authority I have that Congress authorized for Ukraine in a bipartisan spending bill last month. In order to sustain Ukraine for the duration of this fight, next week I'm going to have to be sending to Congress a supplemental budget request to keep weapons and ammunition flowing without interruption to the brave Ukrainian fighters and continue to deliver economic assistance to the Ukrainian people. My hope is, and my expectation is, Congress would move and act quickly. And I want to thank the Congress, Democrats and Republicans, for their support for the people of Ukraine. Our unity at home, our unity with our allies and partners, and our unity with the Ukrainian people is sending an unmistakable message to Putin. He will never succeed in dominating and occupying all of Ukraine. That will not happen. In addition to bolstering Ukraine's resistance on the battlefield, we're also demonstrating our support for the people of Ukraine. Today, the United States is announcing that we intend to provide an additional $500 million in direct economic assistance to the Ukrainian government. This brings our total economic support for Ukraine to $1 billion in the past 2 months. This is money the government can help use to stabilize their economy, to support communities that have been devastated by the Russian onslaught, and pay the brave workers that continue to provide essential services to the people of Ukraine. These past weeks have seen a terrible human cost of Putin's ambition for conquest and control. Approximately two-thirds of all Ukrainian children have been displaced from their home. More than 5 million Ukrainians have fled their country. It's an absolute outrage. The idea this is happening, approaching the second quarter of the 21st century, is just. Last month, when I was in Europe, I announced that the United States would welcome 100,000 Ukrainians so that we share in the responsibility of supporting Ukrainians fleeing Putin's war machine. We've already welcomed tens of thousands of Ukrainians to the United States, and today I'm announcing a program, Unite for Ukraine, a new program to enable Ukrainians seeking refuge to come directly from Europe to the United States. This new humanitarian parole program will complement the existing legal pathways available to Ukrainians, including immigrant visas and refugees processing. It will provide an expedient channel for secure legal migration from Europe to the United States for Ukrainians who have a U.S. sponsor, such as a family or an NGO. This program will be fast, it will be streamlined, and will ensure the United States honors its commitment to go to the people of Ukraine and need not go through our southern border. We're also continuing to ratchet up the pressure on Putin. And
Well, can you pause that for a second?
Stage. Yesterday, the Treasury Department
Need not go through our southern border. This is a guy who left the southern border wide open. Things are a big disaster down there. And that's not something you have to take my word for. There's plenty of documentation from plenty of YouTubers who have been down there, who have footage of what is happening. He knows the tactics that they use. And this is him admitting that he knows everything that's going on. It's pure negligence on his part. I'm sorry, I had to say that.
Department rolled out additional measures to crack down on the entities and individuals attempting to evade our unprecedented sanctions, not just ours, but throughout the West. Today, I'm announcing that the United States will ban Russian-affiliated ships from our ports as they did in Europe. That means no ship that sails under the Russian flag or that is owned or operated by a Russian interest will be allowed to dock in the United States port or access our shores. None. This is yet another critical step we're taking in concert with our partners in the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, and further to deny Russia the benefits of international economic system that they so enjoyed in the past. We don't know how long this war will last, but as we approach the 2-month mark, here's what we do know. Putin has failed to achieve his grand ambitions on the battlefield. After weeks of shelling Kyiv, Kyiv still stands. President Zelensky and his democratically elected government still remain in power. And the Ukrainian armed forces, joined by many brave Ukrainian civilians, have thwarted Russia's conquest of their country. They've been bolstered from day one by an unstinting supply of weapons, ammunition, armor, intelligence from the nations of the free world, led by us, the United States. As Russia continues to grind out the military advances and their military advances and the brutalities against Ukraine, Putin is banking on us losing interest. That's been my view. You heard me say this from the beginning. He was counting on NATO, European Union, our allies in Asia, cracking, moving away. He's betting on Western unity will crack. He's still betting on that. And once again, we're going to prove him wrong. We will not lessen our resolve. We're going to continue to stand with the brave and proud people of Ukraine. We will never fail in our determination to defend freedom and oppose tyranny. It's as simple as that. So again, I want to thank the American people. Thank the American people for their support of the Ukrainian people. This is our responsibility, it seems to me, and we've been able to hold the whole world together in this effort. So thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to take just one or two questions. I got a plane to catch.
What does Putin claiming control over Mariupol mean? How significant is that?
Well, first of all, it's questionable whether he does control Mariupol. One thing for sure we know about Mariupol, he should allow humanitarian corridors to let people on that steel mill and other places that are buried under rubble to get out. That's what any head of state would do in such a circumstance. And so there is no evidence yet that Mariupol is completely fallen.
Mr. President, on Title 42, sir, are you considering delaying lifting Title 42?
No, what I'm considering is continuing to hear from well, first of all, there's going to be an appeal by the Justice Department, because as a matter of principle, we want to be able to be in a position where if in fact it is strongly concluded by the scientists that we need Title 42, that we be able to do that. But there has been no decision on extending Title 42. Thank you.
Mr. President, how long can the U.S. maintain the level and pace of this military support for Ukraine?
Well, we have the capacity to do this for a long time. The question is, are we going to continue to maintain the support of the international community and keep the pressure on Putin to prevent him from overrunning the country, number one, and number two, make sure we continue to maintain the economic sanctions, which over time, and we're beginning to see it, are devastating their economy and their ability to move forward. So the most important thing right now is maintain the unity. So far, so good. Thank you very much.
And there you have it. Joe Biden.
Sleepy Joe Biden.
Committing another 800 million and banning Russian ships from U.S. ports of entry. So more escalation, more funding, more money.
And I think Congress will give him that money to allow him to send even more stuff consistently. Basically, they're going to be giving Ukraine a blank check. And we know the debts in the United States are significantly high. Like, they can't afford this either.
We're going to take a very brief break here to let you know how you can call in and participate in the show and contribute by engaging and offering up your opinion. So hang in there. We will be right back after this brief message.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
And you can join the conversation at 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. It is a free call, but more than that, we are fighting for freedom, trying to preserve free speech. So call in now if you'd like to engage and become part of the conversation. Just by doing that, you become a freedom fighter. And we're always excited to hear from everyone in our Maverick family. The phone system, the call-in system, is a great way for us to engage with people and put some voices to some of those names that we see in the comments section each night. So join us. Call in now at 1-833-975-3733. And more thoughts on Joe Biden, Brendan?
I think before we open the phone line, we should take a look at a couple of different statistics about what it means when he says he's banning all Russian ships at United States ports. Some of the facts here are, in regards to exports, Russia was the United States' 40th largest goods export market in 2019. The U.S. goods exports to Russia in 2018 were $5.8 billion, down 13.1 from the previous year. The top export categories were digital and something else it says here, but it says in 2019, the biggest things that we were sending to Russia were machinery, aircraft, vehicles, optical and medical instruments, and electrical machinery. U.S. total exports of agricultural products to Russia totaled $193 million in 2019. Leading domestic export categories include prepared food, planting seeds, tobacco, feeds, and fodders. And then there's other stuff that was not specified. But look, there's a lot of trading that actually does happen. They're trying to downplay this quite a bit, but I think this might actually add to our supply woes even more, our supply chain woes even more.
Very possible, and very likely. We do need to get to the calls, because if we don't, the phone-in system will actually kick out. We would only have...
it just needs to make that point.
So we have Greg on the phone with us. Hello, Greg. How are you tonight? Can you hear us okay? And I did send you a link to the other window there, Brendan, if you want.
You need to let me
join over there. And I need to actually add Greg to the
call.
To the call. Here we go. Hello, Greg.
Hi. How are you doing?
Just fine. How are you
Can
tonight?
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You're in the system.
Yeah.
What's on your mind? What do you think?
Well, I go to the motive, sir.
I'm sorry, you go
Motive is we're in the end. Motive.
Oh, motive.
You always look to motive. We're in the end times. Jesus Christ warned us about these times. Now, I didn't come to these conclusions from the Bible, but the Bible is a history book and a prophecy book as well, because it's a cycle. It's called the precession cycle, and it's a 26,000-year cycle. And every 12,000 years, our solar system eclipses, crosses over the center of our galaxy's magnetic plane, which causes the end times. And we started crossing in 2012, just like the Mayans predicted. And Jesus called these the birthing pains. What we're seeing now for climate change and stuff, these are just the birthing pains. Noah's east to west. It'll be east to west tsunamis, tidal waves. Because the planet rotates west to east, 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, 0 miles per hour at the poles, and Newton's laws, gravitational pull, it's going to pull the oceans around the planet east to west, probably about 800 miles an hour at the equator. Sorry, you felt me. I just came in from outside. And this stuff is, we've carved this stuff in megalithic structures. We've written it down. And it's written in geological evidence and astronomical evidence and archaeological and topographical. They know it. The people that are lying to humanity, they know it. And they're preparing to save their own asses and looking to get rid of all of ours. You're a Christian, you probably think the world's 6,000 years old. Right?
No, I don't think that, no.
No,
I don't think
well, there's lots we can do, but people have a defeatist attitude about this stuff. Like, we basically know what's coming. Like, you're going to get electromagnetic plasma bursts, pillars of fire. We live in an electric universe, right? Powered by double torus magnets. The galactic nucleus is a gigantic ass magnet, which powers our sun, which powers our planet. So basically, our planet is a micro, as it is above, so it is below, sort of thing, you know what I mean? Or Solomon, nothing new under the sun. See, grade 5 science could debunk CO2 caused climate change, right? Grade 5 science could debunk COVID, actually. Because the temperature, seriously, it could. The temperature is rising first, and the CO2 follows. Cause and effect. Right? So what's causing the temperature to rise? Our solar system is crossing our galaxy's magnetic plane. It does at the vernal and autumnal equinox. Jesus probably called it the Alpha and Omega, right?
Okay.
And as COVID goes, COVID's the same thing. You take what you know is going to happen. So you know the baby boomers, I'm the youngest, I'm the last of the baby boomers, who were born en masse, 10, 20 children families, 76 years ago, are starting to die en masse, because they're born en masse. The usual suspects of seasonal flu, which leads to pneumonia and old age. Now you add in Goebbels' propaganda, the bigger the lie, the more often you repeat it, the more believable it becomes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the media is the virus, sir. As far as Ukraine goes, Ukraine is like Matthew 24:6. You know, and best I can figure it, we have until 2033 before the oceans get pulled around the planet. There's a conjunction of the planets coming in 2033, and it'll probably pull the oceans around the planet. Probably, as far across as I don't know, but like we can do. There's lots we can do. Ezekiel, I call him Ezekiel Musk. His vertical takeoff, vertical landing rockets, right? That would be an arc. We're already doing seed banks. We're doing that stuff. You're going to want to go move people north and west because the oceans get pulled around east to west, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Zenamia, solar sail, laser, spotlight satellites, because that's what they are. They're if you actually read the report on it, the guy that thought it up or rethought it up, whatever the case may be, he calls it solar sails and laser spotlights. So, because it's reflecting the energy of the sun, right? So you could have Garden of Eden with those, or you could do geoengineering with those. Like you could carve, You could carve a river from the Great Lakes down to California if you want. Probably do it in a week.
Yeah, they probably could.
You know?
I'm actually kind of interested on Rick Walker's opinion on this. I've talked a little bit about my stance in regards to end times. I'm just not very sure. And you know,
those who have ears will hear, right? If you have the prerequisite knowledge, you will understand. So if you have,
I get
who have
that,
ears,
but you have to also understand, right, that people have been stating, "Oh, World War II is the end times." Like the end times has been stated over and over and over again. People, when I talk about it, I'm going to be really sure about it. But
I tell you, I did not come to this conclusion lightly. I did a lot of research and a lot of thought experiments, a lot of thinking.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not knocking.
It's undeniable. It's undeniable, right? Like it's like you're getting hail. Okay, hail. Jesus said talon-sized hail. You know how much a talon weighs? It's 150 pounds. And why you're getting hail? Because as the temperature rises, so too does the altitude at which the dew point occurs rises. Which is why California is drying out, which is why North America is getting drier, which is why the moisture is bypassing us. Now it's hitting the mountainous nations over in Europe and stuff. When it hits cold air over there on the East Coast and over in Europe, and it's hitting over there now. Because the planet rotates west to east, all that moisture follows along. The Pacific is half the planet, right? That moisture just follows along, goes west to east as well. But hail forms at high altitudes, right? And talon-sized hail, what was the football size the other day down in Florida? All shall seek shelter under rocks or in caves. Ezekiel Musk's Boring Company, right? And flash floods, well, there's not a lot you can do about that stuff. It is what it is. If you know it's coming, you can prepare for it, right? They're you know how they're preparing. They're looking to get rid of us all. They want the Bible's called tribulation. That's what the vaccine is, basically, tribulation. It takes grade 5, like I say, grade 5 science. It takes 10 years minimum, if and only if you can first isolate the virus to actually develop a virus. You have to culture it in a petri dish. You have to grow it in an egg. Then you have to test it on animals. It was 3 years, 3 variants, 3 vaccines. I'm sorry, the people doing this stuff are absolutely pure evil, pure evil, and they're saving their own asses, right? Get rid of all ours. Jesus said, "I came so you may have life and life more abundantly."
And we could definitely be together on that. I agree with you there. These people, there is a battle of good and evil. And
pure evil. It's survival, right? For them, it's survival. And they're rationalizing it by saying, "Oh, if we don't do this, we're going to be soy and green. People are going to be eating each other." Well, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. Like they actually have a machine now that can take a human body and convert it into soy and green.
I know Rick Walker knows a little bit about that. I haven't heard him say anything though. So.
Oh no, people don't like these things. Like it's like Al Gore's propaganda piece, right?
Yeah.
Inconvenient truth. So they're comfortable lies. The ocean's going to rise. There's no evidence to show the oceans ever rose beyond where they're at now, other than a wave washing across the continent, like Brits, right?
Yeah, somebody made an excellent point about that the other day. Obama bought a mansion on an island off New York. Do you think if Obama was worried about climate change, he would live on an island off the coast of New York? Like, give me a break.
He's living on an island off the coast of New York because he knows humanity is going to be hunting him down.
Yeah.
Same with these guys are building like fortresses, basically. If they don't get rid of us all, it's hey, you live in interesting times and rise to the challenge. Is all I can say. Take up your cross and. Take up your cross and you won't. So like people use like preppers and stuff. Like I'm not saying don't prepare. So they're forcing us into cities, aren't they? Like you can't buy land anymore up here. I'm up in Canada, right? And you can't. Like they made this thing called ALR, Aristocrat Land Reserve. So if you got 1 million acres, you're only allowed to have 2 houses on it, or 5 acres, or whatever. So they're forcing everybody into cities because. The meek hunter-gatherers and homesteaders shall inherit the earth, right? After the great year resets. There's actually a documentary called The Great Year. It's actually not half bad. But the binary star, you got to think of it as a double torus, a sun, a magnet, basically. Energy, right?
Well, we're going to have to
So
move
I'm
on.
fine.
I appreciate the call very much, Greg.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, good day.
Yeah. Thank
too.
you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
Appreciate it.
Just stick with Jesus, man. He unites us all. They can't divide us if we're united.
Okay. Well,
Amen, brother.
you call back anytime. Thank you, Greg. That was Greg talking about the end times, which he thinks are upon us, as many people do. Someone did post and said that Rick believes in facts, and that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't discount the religious aspects or the religious perspective on all of this, but it is true. I like to deal in facts.
Mm-hmm.
And when people start talking about the end times, yeah, I think there's some truth in what he's saying. I don't think you need to go to the Bible or go to any particular religion to see the troubles we're facing and where this is all leading. And I'm not, I do believe that climate change, for instance, is influenced more by the sun than anything human beings are doing. And I also believe that if you believe that human beings are the cause of climate change on the planet, then wouldn't you also believe that human beings can be the solution? If we can affect the climate through just by burning oil, which is what they want us to believe, wouldn't you also believe then that we have the ability to clean it all up and come up with technology to reverse that? Certainly seems to me we could. In fact, a lot of these same people who say that we need to just stop doing this or stop doing that because if we don't, the planet will be doomed, are the same people who are listening to Elon Musk say, let's go to Mars and engage in terraforming so that we can make Mars a planet that we can inhabit. Well, what's more difficult? Would it be more difficult to take Earth and clean it up? Not that, honestly, when I go outside and I look up and I take a deep breath, things don't seem that bad to me, especially today. It was a pretty nice day outside.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me, okay? I don't buy a lot of what people say, but wouldn't it be easier just to make a big machine to suck up carbon dioxide rather than trying to completely transform a hostile planet that isn't capable of supporting human life and trying to transform that entire planet by, I don't know, transplanting enough water onto the surface to, like, where are you going to get all the water? Like, this is, people believe we can transform Mars into a habitable planet, but for some reason we can't fix the one we're on. It's already habitable. Wouldn't it just be easier to fix this one if indeed it's so far gone that we've only got, what did AOC say? We had 10 years. I can't remember what it was. We're down to probably 8 before we're all dead, according to her. I think it was only 10 years.
And they've been saying that like, oh, we were supposed to die like 20 years ago, I think.
No, Matt, still haven't been able to get any crinkle cut French fries. It's a major issue, a source of ongoing frustration. These are the important questions. That being said, I don't want to discount everything Greg is saying. I certainly see the signs and connecting the dots, but sometimes these narratives in and of themselves are a little bit, you're reaching is what I'm saying sometimes in order to connect dots. There's no question we're in terrible times right now. Is it the so-called end times? You can look for religious references, I guess, and touchstones and say, yes, this is it. But as you pointed out, Brendan, throughout time, throughout history, many people have predicted the end times or disaster. The sky is falling. The world is coming to an end. How many times have we seen people make those kinds of predictions only to be wrong? The same way people who are climate change alarmists throughout history have told us the same things. We only have 10 more years and then we're all dead. We've heard that over and over again, and they just keep changing, where the goalposts are. So I do like to deal in facts, and the facts alone that I see, just without getting into the religious aspects of it, they're scary enough. And yes, I do agree with Greg. There are things we can do to prepare. And the first thing we have to do is defend our rights, defend our freedoms, defend free speech so we can hold crazy politicians and bureaucrats and people who really don't have our best interests or the interests of our country or the world at heart, hold them accountable and try to save as many people as we can.
That's for sure. And I at least will always support the idea of storing and keeping food. And there is all kinds of emergencies that can happen, whether they're environmental, et cetera, et cetera. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to store extra things, and be cautious of the idea that the way society operates, where you can go to the store and buy crinkle cut French fries, is somewhat of a miracle to exist at all. And it is something that can be broken easily.
You can call in and join the conversation at 1-833-975-3733. We're going to take a brief break here, and we will be right back after this message.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can donate at freedomreporters.com. Click the hot links in the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble descriptions, or just subscribe. And you can also fight for freedom by calling in right now at 1-833-975-3733 and joining in the conversation. Let's get engaged. Let's hear from you. What do you think about what Maxime Bernier had to say tonight, the leader of the People's Party of Canada, on earlier this evening? I see some people tuning in now saying, where's Max? Well, he was on at the very beginning of the program between 6 and 6:30. You can always rewind and watch his interview with us. It was very gracious of him to share even a half an hour with us tonight. And you can catch his entire interview just by going back after the broadcast is finished and watching the recorded version of it. Catch what he had to say. And of course, you can call in right now at 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. And join the conversation with myself and Brendan here on the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters. And hey, Maverick family, you can be a Top Gun by calling in. It is a totally free call. And just by engaging and participating, you too will be supporting and fighting for free speech.
Also, do remember to make sure you hit the like button, and if you're not subscribed already, please do, and hit the bell to make sure that you receive notifications for when we go live.
So, any further thoughts on where we were at there? We kind of got sidetracked with Greg and his comments on the end of times. I mean, they're all related, I think, to Ukraine. I, of course, am concerned about the level of, the arms that we're sending over to Ukraine. I'm concerned about the money, and I'm concerned about, possible corruption. And we do have a call here now, and it looks like somebody calling from the Ottawa area, possibly
Maxime
Susan.
Bernier?
Is this Susan joining us?
Yes.
Well, how are you tonight, Susan? What's on your mind?
You were right about Maxime. He's the only one that's been around throughout this whole pandemic.
Yep.
I don't trust Pierre Poilievre at all.
Mm-hmm.
Something's just not right. He's making it sound good, but I don't know. Just sounds kind of odd.
Yeah. Go.
My gut's telling me he's not the one.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, you're not alone there. I mean, Pierre is lying to you. Hashtag Pierre is lying to you. It's been trending on Twitter for like 5 days straight, pretty heavily. A lot of people are not so sure about him. And Rick, you made a good.
It's like the jab too. My gut told me from the beginning it wasn't right. So, no, I just. But yeah, I think Maxime Bernier or the New Blue.
Yeah, well, the New Blue is running provincially, right? They're a provincial party in Ontario. The reference to blue being, of course, a reference to the color of conservatism traditionally in Ontario and Canada. So they're the New Blue or New Conservative Party, if you will, for Ontario heading into the next provincial election. And then the PPC, the People's Party of Canada, they're federal. So you can actually support both without any conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's just my opinion. So I thought I'd call in and let you guys know.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I think that those are all valid points. And
you and Brandon have a good night.
Okay, well, thank you.
I'm glad you both are feeling better.
Thank you, Susan. You call back anytime. It's been a pleasure. And,
all right, thanks.
All right, and we do have Greg. I don't know if is this the same Greg or is it a different Greg who wants to talk about Maxime?
Oh, no, this is the same Greg. I just don't want my last name given, no. But
okay, sure. Go ahead. What do you want to say about Max?
First of all, I'm a big fan of yours, Rick and Brendan.
Yep.
I think you're doing a super job. I love the call-in idea. Our only choice, if people would just listen, is Maxime Bernier in the PPC party. He hasn't changed his policies. He hasn't changed what he's been talking about. And he's been doing this for the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know with Pierre Poilievre. This guy backed up Justin Trudeau for the last 6 years here. So I don't know what you think about this, Brendan and Rick. Just think about that, what he's done, and he thinks he's going to save Canada.
Well, here's my opinion on it. To be honest, everybody likes to jump on the hate Pierre wagon, and I'll tell you where I'm at with it. I'm 60. I don't trust him. 60%. I don't trust him. I'm 40%. What if? It's a big what if, but I'm like, what if? And if it is a what if, and it works, then you know what? Thank God. But I don't think that way. I don't trust it. I'm skeptical. The Federal Conservative Party of Canada has severely scarred me. I'm not a sucker. With Scheer and O'Toole, these clowns they let the country run amok. Like we had no opposition in this country since Stephen Harper. essentially. It's just been one-sided politics. I know Rick feels different than I do, but that's where I'm at with it. But Rick made a really good point today too, and I think it's worthy of sharing that. Maxime Bernier, he was so cool that all these potential leadership hopefuls are jumping on his campaign slogans and stuff like that.
Correct. But let's go back to the scenario when Scheer and Maxime Bernier were running for that leadership race.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know there was cheating going on there. There was 7,000 more memberships come in on the 14th ballot. Now, just think about if Maxime Bernier would have won that leadership race, we wouldn't be in any of this, nothing, of what's going on right now with Trudeau, and he won't let us get on a plane if we don't get the double, what we call it.
We can call it the jab. Yeah, the Fauci ouchie.
Well, okay, we can call it the jab. and we can't get on it. Now, I think today or yesterday, in Florida, they come up with something. One of the judges says it's not constitutional anymore that people can fly without masks. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen if some of those people come into Canada? What?
I'm not sure.
Rick, what's your opinion on that?
I don't know.
They've lifted the mask mandates.
Yeah.
We haven't, because Trudeau wants us to get the double jab or the triple jab.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if Maxime won that leadership race against Scheer, we all know that. And Maxime took it like a man. Didn't really say too much about it, but he had to know that all those on the 14th ballot, the extra 7,000 they say from the dairy cartel, that they come in there, and then they burn the ballots after. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, why didn't they save the ballots if the numbers were true, right? So, I mean, I'm all for Maxime. I think we have one chance left here in Canada. And if Maxime doesn't get in there and start running this, this country of Canada, we are going to be a communist country. It's coming if Trudeau can, swing it with the NDP.
Okay, Greg. Well, we're going to move on because we do have somebody waiting in the wings here. Again, thank you very much for calling back, and we appreciate all your comments. Very helpful.
Thank you, Greg.
You're amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great night, Greg. And
good night.
Who do we have here? This is Citizen 9. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, welcome to the Maverick News Channel. What's on your mind tonight?
I'm just curious, what did you gentlemen think of Pierre Poilievre, or did you even know who he was prior to COVID?
Yes, I knew who he was prior to COVID.
Yeah, likewise.
Prior to COVID,
I thought about your opinion before all of this.
Well,
did you see him as, because he was being blacklisted by O'Toole and he was being pushed away?
Yes.
So I'll shut up and listen now.
I was aware of all that. I was aware that he was a potential leadership possibility, not, in this leadership race, but in the one prior. But he did not get involved, and there was a lot of speculation surrounding why. It was never entirely clear at the time why. There was some speculation that somebody might have dug up some dirt on him or something, and he was afraid to run at the time. It doesn't appear to be the case now, so I don't know. He may have just had personal reasons. That was, quite some time ago. I know that everybody on the conservative side of the political spectrum had a lot of hope and faith in him prior to COVID. But of course, I think people's focus and priorities back then were not really on freedom issues, because it didn't appear as though freedom was under assault or was being threatened in the way that it has been since COVID. So yeah, I was aware of him. He looked like a strong leader, probably the best choice following Maxime's loss to Scheer for the leadership. And then, of course, Max leaving and forming the PPC. So I was certainly aware of him beforehand. The situation right now, though, as I say, with the pandemic and the measures that the government has implemented since the emergence of COVID, and I want a leader who has been consistent. I want a leader who is there from the beginning, defending people's freedoms, defending our freedoms, who saw where this was going to go from day one. That's Maxime Bernier, as far as I'm concerned. And there may be others on the conservative side, like Mr. Bourgault, who we had on the program. I'm not as familiar with him, but I was impressed with everything that he had to say. So if you're looking for specifically a conservative leader, I think that he might be worth looking at.
I follow them. You know? I'm just curious, because Poilievre was an attacker of corruption. We can agree on that.
Yeah.
Right? He brought Trudeau's We Charity garbage and many other things to light, and performed there. By the way, I'm a member of the PPC. I donate to the PPC and I voted PPC. But I just think that Trudeau and Singh at all costs must be stopped. And if we're 5% away from Trudeau, like let's say we get 10% of the vote over to the PPC, and that 10% gets Trudeau elected because we've split the vote. Any other election, I would say, okay, no problem. That's great. The PPC is growing. This is awesome. I'm not saying Poilievre is the answer, but I am saying this. Even though he was late to the game and he did not show any pro-lockdown communications, he was not speaking pro-mask, pro all of these, what I would say are evil slave influence measures. But when he did speak, it still was risky, right? Like there's no guarantee that joining the trucker convoy and supporting the trucker convoy is a positive political move. Would you agree with that?
I'm not sure I follow you.
I do. I follow.
Go for it.
He's saying that at the beginning of the convoy, there was the shots of Pierre on the overpass cheering the truckers in.
Yeah.
Is that where you're getting at? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, what I'm saying, I think I.
So it was a political risk. Still, is what I'm saying. Too little, too late, maybe.
Yeah, it was a political risk, and the Liberal NDP alliance is never going to let that down. They're going to keep talking about that till the end of time. So
here's the real question: where is he now on it, really? And is he coming to the defense of Tamara Litch? Has he said anything about Pat King still being, held in custody without bail at this point after all this time? I think it's been, how long has it been? Almost 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months.
So where's Pierre Poilievre on all of that? It makes me wonder if we're faced with another wave of COVID or some other emergency, where is he going to come down on these issues? Is he going to fight for freedom, or is he going to lock us all down like the other guys did? I just don't know. I want something solid personally. I want to see, maybe he can convince me, and I'm open to being convinced, but I'm not feeling terribly reassured just because he's standing up there, using these sort of slogans that he's come up with, like it's just inflation and I'm going to make Canada the freest nation on the face of the earth. Okay, well, these are great lines, but really, where's your conviction? Where have you been for 2 years? So it's going to take a little bit more than some fancy talk and a few marketing slogans to win my support personally. Open to it, but no, it's going to take more than that. And Maxime's already convinced me that he's a great leader. Will they form the next
Me too.
government
I've
through the
given them
PPC?
money. I don't do that.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. I hope that sort of clarifies for you.
So let's just take this a bit further. The campaigns continue. If Bernier does not get a debate, he has zero shot of winning. If he does not have the window to speak to people who know nothing about him, he has zero shot of winning. I mean, he got 5% of the vote. So my question is does there come a point in your guys' mind where if it's up against the wall, are you going to vote tactically to prevent Trudeau? Do you think that preventing Trudeau is more critical, let's say, than having Bernier in? Is I guess what I've been trying to get at this whole time as a question.
I don't think that way when it comes to voting. When it comes to the last election in September 2021, that's all everybody talked about. Oh, you're going to split the vote. Oh, you're going to split the vote. Well, they did a conclusive analysis on the situation. It didn't. No conservative member failed to get into office because the PPC person stole all their votes. It just didn't happen. Didn't happen. I'm the type of person who I'm always going to vote with where my heart and my mind align on the issues. And if I don't trust a politician, then to hell with them. I'm not going to give them my vote.
So yeah, they took it from the NDP. The PPC did. At least that's what it looked like. I agree with that, but at the same time, 5% of the vote is not a lot, right? And we do have to make sure that Singh and Trudeau lose power. I mean, it's the end of freedom. If they get another several years after the next 3 years, how can we ever recover from that without, international intervention? Like a Republican president starting to slap sanctions on this country. I mean, I think it's that critical. And I don't think tactically when I vote generally either. But it, I guess it's a non-religious way of saying we're at the end of times. I guess I'm doing the same damn thing. But I
well
do
played, sir. Well
really
played.
fear it. But anyway, thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
And I will call again.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. We're going to move on and speak now with, I'm not sure, I can't tell from what's on the screen if it's Terry or
We'll just let them
Gary,
say.
but who
Hello,
are we?
who's calling?
Who are we listening to here now?
Oh, this is Gary from Edmonton once again.
Hi there.
Oh, hello.
Hi guys. Gary from Edmonton. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. How are you this evening? And what are you thinking?
Oh, I'm thinking I'm gonna, this is funny. It's one of the few call-in shows where everybody is really staying on topic, eh? Kind of funny. But yeah, I guess I'll just quickly make my point because I'd love to have other people. I might say something that might trigger somebody, so we'll see what happens here. But I think that I agree with Rick. I think and with you, Brendan, as well. I think that we should vote with our hearts. Make sure we're voting the right direction. And I think that any kind of a strategic vote, I think that's just not the right way to go, because some people might think this is conspiracy theorists, but I think the idea of a controlled opposition isn't too far-fetched, isn't it?
No, it's not far-fetched at all.
No.
It isn't, is it, Rick? And the WEF has been in our government long before the Liberals were taken over.
We have penetrated the cabinet.
Exactly, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, nobody was thinking about stuff like that because people were thinking about the 2008 crisis, the financial crisis, or I was one of the people that
It's
with my
gotten so bizarre
ex-wife.
that Klaus Schwab could literally be a villain from a James Bond movie. Like he really could.
Well, yeah. Well, it's even more ridiculous. It's more like Gold Member or Gold. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's,
Gold Member.
yeah, Gold
Yeah, it's
Finger,
more
right?
like Gold Member. You're right. Like Austin Powers. It's that crazy.
That's
it's
right.
It's beyond insane.
Another.
So it's comical.
I wonder if Justin Trudeau got his shrew painted gold.
Like really, if you just, that's why they get away with it, because it's easy to say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. Meanwhile, when they're sitting there saying, you will own nothing and you will like it, and they mean it, and they're really doing it. And when you just try to talk about it, it's so insane that you sound insane saying it, while these insane people are actually doing these insane things to us.
That's right.
You were actually pretty good at that, Rick.
I know, it's pretty scary, isn't it?
Well,
I just need to shave my head.
I love the sense of humor. Yeah, I love the sense of humor you guys have. I think that we're living in some pretty harsh times, and I appreciate it. I mean, I had a very good laugh. I don't want to get into the topic and trigger more people into something else, but I was that was the perfect medicine for me that day. It was just hilarious. I was laughing my head off all day thinking about it. So, but anyway, guys, I just wanted to say hello again. I know it's been a little while. I also wanted to touch base. I haven't said very much about myself or what I'm doing. I think that a lot of people that listen to this show are definitely part of the freedom movement. I've been doing a lot of work with Action for Canada, not work, because it's way too much fun to be work. And when you throw away the working for, the dark side, it's everything is fun. Everything that you do is fun. And I mean, like right now I can do any kind of work. And if I have a smile on my face, I just find like everything the universe really works with you that way.
That's a great point. It's about being around community, right? So you are with people that are similar minded in your community, and you're working towards something that is very noble and very good. So thank you for all your efforts with that.
And in fact, I think we should probably devote an entire show to talking about parallel communities, parallel economies, how we are forming new friendships and creating communities within communities of communities of freedom fighters, right?
That's right, because Rick, so many people are so tired of this, so tired of it, that they're thinking the only way to do anything differently is to start fresh somewhere else.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are looking at land, they're looking at building a community of people. I mean, and it's just, that's exciting. And there's a lot of talk of that. There's already organized talk about that with silver as a way to, be paid for the work that we do within our community, or also services. Like for me, I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, so I'm doing some work with them for that. This Saturday, there's going to be some good music happening. There's going to be more marching, and I know I'm going to meet a lot more people. And every time I go there, I make new connections, and it's just amazing. Like, so, and like sometimes the whole week can feel like you're just waiting to get up there and do your thing and do your speaking. And when you go to these any kind of these rallies, well, at least in Edmonton, everybody gets a chance to go up and talk. You might not be able to go up the day that you wanted to go up, and sometimes it doesn't work that way in your favor anyway. I mean, last weekend I went up I was talking about the manipulation of our Father and how it connects to the church and a whole lot of other things. But I had wanted to go up there and talk about that on the last Saturday, but I didn't have a chance. And then it worked out in my favor, so to speak. If you think that it's me doing this, but that's, the next weekend was the Saturday before Easter Sunday. So it worked out way better. I had a lot of people coming up to me talking to me actually about that later on, made some great connections, and yeah, so.
Well,
but,
they can try and lock us all down again, and they tried to, lock us down before. The truth is, I know that across Canada and in a lot of places in the States, but I'm certainly more aware of it in Canada, where people were engaged in creating parallel communities. And there were bake sales and, dinners and things going on underground that the people who think they're controlling everybody, they think they're doing that. In reality, people were finding all kinds of creative ways to live their lives. And I know that was going on all over the place, and that's what needed to happen, because without that, a lot of people would have gone completely insane, and we would have had even more suicides, right? We need community, and thank God there are, enough people out there like that working together to make sure that our communities actually do survive and that there is freedom in the face of tyranny out there.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, don't even get me going on that subject with the suicide thing. I mean, it's absolutely, like, you can call it what you want, but I think it's absolutely sinful and absolutely going the wrong way when, you think about things. I mean, I was affected by suicide when I was a kid. I was a young boy, and my parents were trying to help out my aunt who had lost her children due to, I guess it was mental illness, but her husband was a master psychologist, had a master's degree in psychology, and knew exactly what to do and what to say. Got her, and this is back in the late 70s, early 80s. So back then, you'd be surprised. Women's rights weren't really around back then. Like, I mean, you could get your wife committed for, doing the stuff we're doing today, buddies. And so it's come a long way since then. But so that, to me, when I just don't think of that as suicide. I think of that as murder, especially when you look at the pharmaceutical companies were experimenting on drugs that had side effects that they didn't know. And, most of the side effects were suicidal. Like it was right on the top of the list. If you look at these so-called remedies. And so, I actually found my aunt hanging. I had to cut her down, whatnot.
Oh dear.
And it was bad. Like I'm not trying to, like, listen, I appreciate the sympathy, like that's great, but it's like it actually shaped my whole life and made me ready for what's coming. Right. So I feel like it was but it's evil to just go ahead and start. Let's just say it, for somebody to be so sad because they're locked in their house and they're at the prime of their life. Like some of these people that are doing this, they don't even know that, you can wait a year and all of a sudden all your circumstances change. It's a lot easier if you have faith in things, but I mean, let's say you don't have faith and you're just running on man's clock. Most of the time you can just wait it out, get some self-help books, or talk to some people that really care about you and tell them exactly what you feel. But you can't do that when you're locked up in a place and you're so young that I don't know if you guys remember how time used to be it was a lot different. There was a different perspective when you're young. Like, I look at my time when I was like from, let's say, 10 years old till 16. And that feels like 20 years.
Yes, it does.
And then when you get, right? And then you get out of high school, you get out of university or college, or you get out of, just move out of your house and move on with your life. It's funny how quickly that time goes. the problems just seem to be a little bit, they're they're a lot more serious when you're young, I think. And I don't know, they seem more serious because, yeah, it's just hard. You don't have that wisdom yet.
Problems feel amplified when you're younger because you just hadn't had any problems. And so a good example is I used to have this really spoiled friend. I mean, we were lower kind of middle class growing up, and I was told to do the dish. I used to always have to do the dishes, and my friend was told to do his dishes, and it was the worst thing in the world, and he was crying about it. It was like, holy smoke! It's just about the perspective, though, right? When you've never had any problems, and then you get a problem, it's like, holy gee, this is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and when you have, just imagine what it's like for these young people nowadays, where their whole lives are. I mean, I've seen babies teasing on iPhones. Okay, like I mean, we're raising our kids to become like to just depend on everything that they see. And I'm not talking about you guys. You guys are, I spend more time than I usually do on the internet when I'm watching your program. But these kids, that's all they have. So just imagine what it's like to be, even if they have their opinion, even if they have an opinion on what's going on, and they think that what's going on is wrong, they're being told differently by people that they love and respect. And you guys know what I'm talking about. There's such a division within families and social groups, and people that I used to play music with. Geez, I don't even talk to them now. Some of the people, I've had to meet new people, and that's fine with me because I feel a lot happier about it now. But I just really feel sorry for the young people, and I think they are going to make. A lot of people are going to make a vote. They're going to vote. I hope we're voting the right way. I think Bernier is the only way to go because, there's one thing about Bourgault. I know he's a good man too, because my family is from northern Saskatchewan in a little town called St. Brew. And St. Brew would have been one of those towns that would have been wiped out off the map by now if it wasn't for Bourgault Industries. Because if you look at a lot of the other small towns that I used to drive through, they're not even there anymore. The 7-Eleven comes and takes over the mom and pop store. The elevator gets shut down. Crown corporations buying up all the land. Like I'm talking like so much land you guys wouldn't even be able to guess. I mean, I wouldn't be able to guess. I couldn't even tell you. And he's been good for that part of things. And
that's an important note to make there. There is a problem with the death of the small town in North America, and that's very sad. Terribly sad.
And we used to go for like little trips. My dad would go just kind of like not really scavenging hunting, but sort of like just driving down the highway with our arms out the window in the sun and just going down and looking at like there's an old building, let's go check it out, and there's history in there. And it was different. It's not nowadays you get charged with trespassing and there'll probably be some CN cop with more technology than CSIS chasing you. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much. You guys, I'm sure there's people wanting to get on and they're like, oh, I hope this guy shuts up because I want to talk about Bernier.
Well, we appreciate you calling in and participating tonight.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I always, whenever I go to, see what's going on, I basically say, well, let's see what my buddies are up to. Let's see what we're.
Well, hey, I really appreciate your call. Thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you.
Hey, right on. Thanks a lot, guys. God bless you and have a great night.
You as well, sir.
You too. Call back anytime. We're always here. At least
I will.
Okay.
Hey, I hope you guys are having I hope there's people backing up the phones. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of people listening. They're kind of busy doing other things, but
yep,
we'll see. Okay.
All right. Thank you
again.
Take care,
guys.
Take
Okay.
care.
Thanks
All
a lot,
right.
guys.
And
Bye-bye.
that being said, we'll be back right after these messages.
I'm still on the line, so I just want to say take care.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can donate at freedomreporters.com. You can also click the hot links in the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble descriptions and go straight to the donation page to support our independent journalism here on the Maverick News channel. And I'll throw it over to Brendan to tell you how you can support us in other ways as well.
You can smash the like button. Be sure to do that. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. We are pumping out content all the time with more and more to come in the near future. Furthermore, make sure you hit the bell for notifications to make sure that you get notified of everything that we are doing. We appreciate all of the support that you have given us over the past few months here. And thank you so much for everything, whether it's participating in our conversations, whether it's commenting. Thank you. We really appreciate you.
Yes, and if you support our work, then we'll be able to continue to bring in high caliber, high quality guests like Maxime Bernier, who was on earlier this evening, or Scott Ritter, who is an expert on foreign affairs and especially Ukraine and Russia. So, yeah, support what we're doing, and we in turn will make sure that you have a voice and you can join us right now and lend your voice to the conversation by calling 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Call in now, participate in the conversation. We are getting close to the end of the broadcast, but we do have a little bit of time left. So if anybody else still wants to call in and engage, we still have a little bit of time to do that. So whether you want to talk about Maxime Bernier or what's going on in Ukraine, still a few minutes left in the broadcast, and you're welcome to engage with us tonight. But as we do that, possibly prepare for a couple of calls coming in here. Any further thoughts tonight on today's top news stories, Brendan?
Yeah, so when it came to the Joe Biden thing, when I watched that this afternoon, I watched it on like ×2 speed. And so when we watched it on normal speed, I was like, holy gee, he's not that lively, Joe Biden. And what a big difference it makes when he has that teleprompter, eh?
Yeah. Well, I just think that the entire situation over there is, I don't know what the right word is anymore. I don't like what I see, obviously. I don't like seeing someone like Joe Biden, who has a clear conflict of interest, who has been over there engaging in what I would say is corrupt activity. We see all kinds of evidence of that, from Hunter Biden's laptop We see that a lot of politicians have been engaging in corrupt activity over in Ukraine. And yet this is the guy who's standing up there earmarking another $800 million in military aid, sending more weapons over there. Somebody, one of our callers called in tonight and said they always look at motive. What's the true motive behind someone like that sending lethal military aid over to a corrupt country where you've clearly been engaged in corruption?
I highly doubt it's for democracy.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It certainly does make you wonder. Anyway, it is 8:55, and we are drawing things to a conclusion here tonight. We have talked about a lot of things. We got into a fairly detailed conversation, even though it was only a half an hour long, which was all the time we really had with Max tonight. We covered a lot of ground. He was very good. He was clear. He was concise. And as I say, he has been one of the only politicians I've ever met who has been consistent. Does what he says he's going to do, says what he means. It's pretty clear, backs it up with his actions, and even went to jail in the face of tyranny to stand up for what he believes is right and stand up for freedom. I think that is the right thing. That's what we're here for, too. We're here fighting for freedom, fighting for free speech. And to do that, we need your help. So before we sign off tonight, I would beg again, one more time, just if you're able to support us, you can do that by going to freedomreporters.com or by clicking the hot links in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions. And you can go straight to the donation page there to support our independent journalism, support our efforts to fight here on the front lines of the information war.
We beg of you. We absolutely need your help. And also, please remember, smash this thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell to make sure you get those notifications. And last but not least, share this with your friends. Share it with your family. And do remember that offer. For $200, you can rent me and Rick to your family gathering event, and we can scare your relatives away. So that's still on the table. But
we do have one caller in just before our 9 p.m. cutoff, and may go a little beyond 9 o'clock now because we're gonna take a call from Brenda Lawler, who does want to talk about Maxime. How are you tonight, Brenda?
I'm fine. I am so glad that you guys are doing this. I've been following you since the Convoy, and you got through me because I was skeptic with the COVID and all this. But I'm calling about Maxime.
Sure.
I followed him on Mad Max, and I'm going to say I was a liberal all my life. And after I seen what Trudeau did to our citizens, I turned against the liberal. And as far as the conservative, I want to ask you a question. They're saying Pierre is not with the WEF, but isn't there people in his party with the WEF?
Definitely, yes.
He was listed on a website.
I won't.
You go ahead.
Okay, you go, Brandon. No, go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. Yes, his name was on the WEF website, and it's gone now. I don't know how much or how little involvement he has had with that. He, on several interviews he has done, has explicitly stated, I'm not involved in the WEF. I don't know. It's concerning, but I really have to say, welcome to the party. We are so glad to have you. We will take any of Justin Trudeau's former followers are so welcome. So, welcome to the party.
Thank you. What I was going to ask, but there is members in the Conservative Party that are with the WEF, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
Absolutely.
You can go on the
Conservative.
Yeah, you can go on the WEF website
I don't
and you'll
trust
see the
liberals,
lists. Yeah.
and I don't trust the NDP anymore. None of them.
Yep.
So now my trust is in Maxime because everything I heard and how he talks. To me, he's the most honest politician right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do have a politician in southern New Brunswick. I wish we had one here in northern New Brunswick, PPC leader, who speaks just like Maxime. And that's where I found out about the PPC leader, because I seen this guy on Facebook. And the way he was talking, Nicolas Perret, I can't even pronounce his last name, it was unreal. So that's what turned me to start going with the PPC.
Well, what we've seen with the PPC is that it started out as really a home for homeless conservatives, but through the last election, we saw people from all political stripes coming over and joining the People's Party of Canada. And that is because of the kind of experience that you're describing right now. And there really, I don't think is much difference anyway between even the Conservatives and the NDP these days. Maybe
no, there isn't.
Ones,
and I don't see any difference with the Conservatives, the Liberals, or the NDP.
Yep.
I don't see any difference, because what I'm hearing, like with Pierre's talking, I mean, I always say sometimes they're all talk, but no action.
Yep.
Well, that's him. That's what I see. All talk, no action. And then when they get there, and if he does become prime minister, my opinion is that when he gets there, there's nothing I can do because the Liberals ruined us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They always come back with something like that.
That's I mean, we don't have, based off of the track record since 2015, they haven't given us any reason really to trust them on anything.
No, I don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
and
for good reason. Where
I come from, the north of New Brunswick, they're all red. It's red. Mm. And I mean, and it's where I live, there's a lot of senior citizens. And just yesterday, I was talking to my mother, and she's a real liberal, and she was saying, "Oh my gosh, Trudeau was here Tuesday. I just love him." Well, I kind of said, "What?" Like, they follow the media on TV. Like, they don't have computers. They don't see what I see. So I tried to explain this to the people in this little town that I know, but it's just like this. It doesn't want to sink in. And even with my mother, like, she don't understand it. So I bring her down here sometimes to show on the computer what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, bless you for doing that. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. I always try to urge with the family matters diplomacy, because at the end of the day, I love my family. Whenever they get into
I do too.
Whenever they get into divisive issues, I will opt out. I'm not the type of person who has to have the last word.
When I start to talk about politics around my family, they just hang up the phone and say, "Oh, we're real busy now. I gotta go," or they all just get up and leave the room. Or sometimes they just tell me to shut up. That's quite. It's becoming more and more common all the time. Yeah, but
what I'm saying is, like, when you have elderly people like in their 80s and that, it's kind of hard to get them to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Or, to change their mind, or like until you have to show it to them. Like, I showed her on the computer what happened in Ottawa because she's seen it on TV.
Yeah.
But she didn't see the whole story. So she was only believing what the fake news was telling her.
Yeah.
Until she's seen it on the computer, and then she said, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
so
half of these senior citizens don't have computers.
Did her opinion change about that by any means?
Yes, it did a bit. Yes, it did. It did. Like, she couldn't believe what happened in Ottawa, but she still said, "Oh, I love Trudeau." Like, she still said it after she's seen. I'm there. What do you love about him? Like, what did he do for you? What's he doing for the senior citizens? Like, he's liberal. You see what it is? Is when they're brought up red, they stay red.
Never underestimate the
don't go
power.
by-
Yeah, never underestimate the power of free stuff.
Yeah.
That's the way they
Yeah.
go when they buy votes.
And well, that's it. And I'm trying to tell her that we lost our freedom. And I'm trying to tell people down here, but they don't, well, what freedom did we lose? So you can't. So then you just go, okay, I better shut up because they're going to think I'm the crazy one. Like,
Yeah. Well, we'll get into more of
because,
that. We'll get into more of that in future episodes. And I've touched on this many times over the last few months here on the program about how the so-called free stuff that they give us, which they're really just, they're bribing us with our own money.
Yep.
It's all a trap.
Yes.
And even the socialized healthcare that they bribe us with, they've been using that as a tool, and they've taken away all of your choice. So they're able to use that as a weapon against you to limit your freedom. You must comply with this, or you don't get healthcare over here. You have to get this thing in your arm, or you're not even allowed to walk in and get medical care over there. You're not allowed to have a heart transplant. And that's not me making that up. That's true.
Yep.
If you don't have that thing in your arm, they're not going to give you a heart transplant. They'll let you die.
Well,
and that's all for your health.
I did get the jabs. I got 3, but I'm not getting no more. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And because here, when I wanted to go visit in Ontario, I had to have the jab at the time because I have 2 sons that live in Ontario. So if I wanted to visit up there, I had to have the jab to come back into my province in New Brunswick.
And so let me ask you this. Do you think that was right? Should they have held that over your head in that way to force you to get that? Because that's coercion in my view.
Yes, and I agree. And it's my body, it's my choice, but I didn't have a choice if I wanted to go to come back in my province.
So that's not really a choice.
It was like, no, we didn't. Nobody had a choice down here.
Yeah, it's not
it was
really
that if you wanted to travel out of your province,
or if you want to keep your job,
or you work for the health corporation. Because I did work for the health corporation and down here, and you had to have the jab to keep your job.
Yep.
So
that's not a choice.
We had no choice. It's not a choice. They took our freedom away. They took our choice away.
It's all for your health, though. All for your
sad.
safety. All for our safety. Just remember that. Yeah.
It gets the jab or it has to stay
fact,
inside.
They're so concerned about your safety that if you don't comply, they'll let you die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's what they say. But now
I
it's
personally,
like what I see.
I personally took my removed my organ donor thing off of my driver's license because at that point it's like, oh well, you guys are going to discriminate like that. Well, then you know what? You're not taking my organs for that.
Oh, that's good. I'm not an organ donor either.
What a terrible situation to be in, though, right?
Sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, I was born in 1960, and I never seen Canada like this. I mean, to me, this is not my country. Right now, I feel like we're a communist because we got a dictator as a prime minister.
Yeah.
So that's all I'd like to say tonight. I'm going to leave you guys go.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for your program. I enjoy watching it every night.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you calling in. It's been great.
Great. God bless you, and we'll see you.
Yeah, great call from Brenda. And with that, we will wrap up for the evening by once again reminding you can support our work by donating at freedomreporters.com. Freedomreporters.com. Click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions. Go straight to the donation page. As independent journalists and as we fight for free speech, freedom of the media, we talked about new censorship legislation that's pending, new censorship laws that are about to come into effect if Justin Trudeau, and I'm sure he will, and when he's successful in passing this new legislation, it'll impose new controls over the internet and impose new restrictions over independent journalists. And he's going to attempt to license journalism in Canada, which is a very new idea. And I would say it's completely out of line and not in keeping with a free and open and democratic society. But you can help us fight back by donating to us at freedomreporters.com. And I'll throw it over to Brendan to wrap up on his end tonight.
You can be sure to make sure that you smash the like button. And if you have not already, make sure you subscribe. It's a big help for us and it helps defeat the algorithm. Lastly, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so that you get notifications every time we are up to any trouble. With that being said, I am your co-host, Brendan Kennedy. It's been an absolute pleasure reviewing the stories of the day with you today. And I can't wait till tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you again.
And it was a great show. Thank you again to Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, for joining us on the program tonight. I know that I can't say anything about it, but I think the PPC actually has a big announcement coming down tomorrow. So we'll have more to say about that tomorrow night, if not earlier in the day. I'm not sure. We might even be able to pick up a feed or something and maybe even inform you with an update during the day, midday tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Just keep an eye open on your email because we'll send out a notification if we should happen to go live with a broadcast at midday with a breaking news alert. Otherwise, we will be back here, as Brenda said, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat station here on the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters. We are the antivirus program for your mind. Thanks for watching.